you. All right, we've got 7 o'clock. I'd like to call to order the Romeo Downtown Development Authority regular meeting for Monday, April 3rd, 2023 at 7 p.m. Elizabeth, can you do a roll call, please?
Sure. Carr? St. Laurent?
Here.
Lee?
Here.
Brandt?
Here.
Rose?
Here.
Hayes?
Here.
Poznansky?
Here.
McLeod?
Here.
Hutnick?
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Next, I'd like everybody to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, all right, before we get into public comment, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. Seeing how many people are here in the audience is a testament for how much people care about our Romeo community, and more importantly, the work of the board and our executive director, Elizabeth Miller. I would ask that during public comment and throughout this meeting, we handle ourselves with respect of one another as well as our staff. That is my ask of both the audience and this current DDA board. In the interest of time, we will be capping public comment at 3 minutes per person so we can ensure we conduct a productive meeting. We will try to allow everyone who wants a chance at the podium to speak publicly and refrain from treating it as a Q&A. We are all members of the same community, and I'm confident that this board, consisting of residents and merchants, will do its best to uphold the integrity of the Romeo DDA. And with that being said, I'd like to proceed with public forum. Any takers? When you come to the podium, if you could just state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Virginia Cairo. I live at 419 North Main Street, and I've been a resident in this community for 30 years. As a preface to my comments this evening, I would like it to be noted that I have 30 years of administrative experience in a public school district, and 20 of those years were directly related and involved with HR. I have hired, evaluated, promoted, disciplined thousands of employees during those 30 years, and I too have terminated employees when it was warranted. To be successful in this endeavor, you need 3 things. You need knowledge of the applicable laws and policies. You need to understand the intent of the laws and policies. And the third one, and the most difficult one, is you must understand the culture and the climate of the community. Those are all the unwritten rules that a community operates under. When I went from one school district in St. Clair County to a school district in Oakland County, they were as different as night and day in terms of what was important to the community, what was not important, and how you got certain things done. So I want to start out by saying that many members of the community are very upset with what they believe you are attempting to do. There's 3 parts to this: how you are attempting to do it and why you are attempting to do it. Tonight, because in the interest of time, tonight I'm going to focus on the how. It's like, how did we get here? The first thing is, my understanding is Mr. Rose. Where's Mr. Rose? You're Mr. Rose.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. My understanding is, Mr. Rose, and you own Main Street Coffee House on Main Street, correct?
Thank you for saying it correctly. You are one of a few.
Well, I'm telling you, I had to practice it because I wasn't getting it right. So anyway, my understanding is that you asked for a committee to be formed, and an evaluation committee or an employment committee. Then you nominated, and I think she's sitting next to you, Miss McLeod, which I've never met you before, to be on that committee because she was not at the meeting. So you nominated her to be on the committee. As an aside, I want to say this, and please, I don't mean this personally against you because I don't even know you. but it's part of what people are upset about. Yes, you have a business here. My understanding is you do not own the building that your business is in, that you rent, that you've only done so for less than a year, and that you do not even live here. Now, while I understand that I'm
All
sure
right, that's,
you do, okay, well, good. Thank you for setting that straight.
Yeah,
And
I'm
I've
s-
been in Romeo with my
The-
business for
But-
3 years.
Where you are now?
Your 3 minutes are up.
Can anyone?
You can have mine. Nope.
Okay, so, thank you for correcting that for me, because that's what I was told. Because that is part of what people are upset about, that this subcommittee was comprised of 3 people that turned into 2 people, both of whom were appointed to the board in January of this year. They were appointed in January. They made whatever their recommendations were. They were appointed to the board in January. They were appointed to the subcommittee, I believe, in February, and by March, they had recommendations. Now, if you're going to say that you are going to evaluate the executive director, and you're going to call it an employment and evaluation subcommittee, then I think the onus of responsibility is upon you to do that evaluation according to what is fair and reasonable. The second member of the subcommittee, Andrea St. Laurent, volunteered to be on the committee. And my understanding is she volunteered because she has experience in HR in the corporate world. While I appreciate that, this is not corporate America. This community and this board functions much more similarly to a school district. When we're talking about an individual employee, they are not an isolated employee that has no impact on anyone else. What she does, what she has done, has impact on all of the people in this room and many, many beyond this room. So I don't see how HR experience in the corporate world translates to this situation. I too was in the corporate world. I was the executive director of curriculum for a nationwide architectural firm. That environment was very, very different than the school district environment and than this environment. So my question is, in terms of how we got here, was there a consistent evaluation tool utilized? Did all members of the DDA have the opportunity to evaluate Elizabeth? Was there a goal-setting session? If so, were the goals observable and measurable? Was the employee given a reasonable amount of time to accomplish the goals? Was there a midterm review? Mrs. Poznansky, once again, I find myself speaking to you and saying how the buck stops with you. And as a member of this board, and especially as the president of this village, I am asking you to put an end to this witch hunt, because many members of the community do feel like it is a witch hunt. Because we don't have the standards I would have if I was testifying in court, I'm going to say, John, I can't tell you how many people have come to me and said, John sits in his business and badmouths Elizabeth all day long.
All right, that 3 minutes is up.
I'll stop.
Thank you for your time. I do want to note to the members of the audience, we are capped at 30 minutes for public comment, so if we could allow the people who are here to speak to have their chance at the podium, it would be appreciated.
Good evening, Elizabeth Kellogg, 140 Tilson. I can't say I'm not sad, mad, angry, perplexed, confused. We all saw the post on Facebook with the special agenda stating employment of the executive director of the DDA. Everyone immediately started questioning if a small group of board members were trying to fire Elizabeth, which started a firestorm of support and advocacy for her. I hope this can be cleared up, but many people are saying some of you are trying to keep the special meeting as quiet as possible. Some are saying it's the 4 new board members specifically who want to remove Elizabeth. Some are saying one of the board members wants her job, one of the new board members. Yes, that is all hearsay. I understand that very well. But then there was a cryptic Facebook post from one of the board members leaving everyone to wonder what happened, leaving people to speculate. As we hear about another, and then we hear about another board member going into businesses bad-mouthing Elizabeth. We hear some of you are holding meetings without other members present and without public notice. People were told the truth will come out and don't believe everything you hear. What is true? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But even if some of it is true, it is very concerning for the future of Romeo and also very concerning legally. I hope you understand how many people love this woman and support her. You saw it on Facebook, and there are many, many more. This community is thriving. What she has done over the past year with her volunteers and past board members should be celebrated by each of you. You are leaders in this community. I'm saddened that some of you are not supporting, encouraging, and coaching her. Instead, some of you have chose to scold her publicly. She does not deserve that. Neither would you. And if it is true, some of you are trying to remove Elizabeth, I have to wonder if you are concerned at all with the effect this will have on personal and respected family reputations, your businesses and others. Romeo's reputation with the volunteers that want to come and help, will they continue? Will we continue to get the donations that she's been getting? Will new businesses want to come to this community? So many people to consider other than those of you on this board. What a shame. Someone on Facebook even said, "This just another Romeo turf war." Aren't we better than that? With that being said, we deserve some answers. I'd like to know what 3 board members called the special meeting, who posted the notification, why was it canceled, what was the communication process to Elizabeth, why was it so urgent to be held on a Saturday, what was the purpose of the special meeting, was there an agenda, because I'd like to see that. Can someone give me 20 seconds? Thank you. The Employment Committee, I have a lot of the same questions that Virginia had. Who is on the committee? How long have they been there? How long have they worked with Elizabeth to get to know her? I worked with Elizabeth for a year. She's just a great human being in every way. What is the purpose of the Employment Committee, and what are the policies and procedures? I'd like to see those. Andrea, if you could email those to me, I'd appreciate that. Policies and procedures of the Employment Committee. And is there an employee handbook? So I'd like to see that as well. Lastly, did any of the current board members communicate via email or text regarding DDA business and decisions that would put the DDA at risk for the Open Meetings Act violation? You don't deserve this.
I'll start giving you guys a 30-second warning on when your 30 seconds are left.
What's that say?
I'm just going to give you a heads up when you have 30 seconds.
Oh,
left
okay,
from
I'll
here
be
on out.
fast, be quick. I'm Mike Romano from Tech City Electronics, also past president of the Romeo Chamber of Commerce and past president of a club we had here downtown Romeo called Merchants, Restaurants, and Professionals. I just want to say real quick, there's leaders in this town, this village of ours. We're sitting amongst, and in front of one who has done wonders in her short time in office right here. Recently was awarded by our Chamber of Commerce as an outstanding spokesperson for this business community. And leaders need other leaders to continue to make this downtown thrive. I'd like to know, first of all, since this new board's been in, and this whole year, me as a business owner, why are we taking up so much of our time having to defend her and what she's done and what she's continuing to do? Because me, for one, I'm getting sick and tired of it. This, right now, is nothing more than a persecution or somebody bullying somebody at a yard. This is ridiculous. We have got continuity, we've had forward movement. We don't have buses coming to Romeo to drop people off. We have people like her with creativity and the longevity to see it through. I left out of my office last winter after the streetscape project on a freezing cold day and worked 8 to 10 hours in my computer shop. And as I left, hopped in the car to crank the heat and drive home. She's standing, and I met her at 7:30, or saw her out at 7:30 that same morning with the streetscape project. And at 6:30 at night, I'm leaving. She's standing on the corner checking the work to see that that's been done. If that's not a leader, what are we looking for in a downtown DDA director? She has done more than we've seen in the last 3 or 4 directors in front of her in 1 year. And with that girl's help, she's going to continue to do so. So please stop wasting our time so we can get back to business and move forward. You guys should be grabbing onto somebody like her and riding her coattails to get the DDA the reputation that it deserves or wants for Romeo when we're competing with Rochester and other big cities around the area. She's brought more business to this downtown in the last year than any other form or communications that we put in place. Why do you want to kick her out of this community or club
30
or the
seconds,
job that
Mike.
she's doing? We kicked her out of the building. She lands on her feet, takes lemons, turns to lemonade. Now she's, trying to survive, to continue doing it all for us and getting it done. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Ready?
Go for it.
All right. Hello, DDA board, the public. Some of you may know me better than others, but for those who don't, I am Madison Roush. I am 22 years old, and I am admin and event coordinator for the Downtown Development Authority. I have been here technically just over a year as I started volunteering in the beginning stages of the first Winterfest. In regards to the recent behavior and actions that I have witnessed within the past few months, I feel as though my opinion should be heard. I work with our executive director, Elizabeth Miller, every day. I see the inner workings, how decisions are made, and how communication generally is conducted. As she is being reviewed, my opinion was never asked, what my experience was, or how I felt. Elizabeth was the one who brought me in part-time. She's been my main mentor in learning this system and learning how to best conduct some of this business. I've been given wonderful opportunities because she took a chance on bringing me in. In doing so, I formed many relationships with local businesses, and I had believed even friendships. I've spoken openly to a few of you about my opinions. Sometimes Elizabeth and I disagree. We might have done things different ways, or there was an issue that needed to be resolved. In each case, however, she took the time after to talk to me about what her actions were and how I felt. I felt that I could talk to her about their effect on me. This is something I do not see in people often. In every situation, mistakes are made, but not everyone has the courage to bring that back up and talk about it. I think she strives for integrity. Integrity, the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles, moral uprightness. As most likely the youngest in this room, I am disheartened and disappointed in the behaviors that I've witnessed surrounding this issue. Heated arguments, back-channel communications, implications that I should find new work, and some don't even have the nerve to look me in the eye. One board member approached me in confidence and stated that in actuality, a lot of business owners would like to see me in the DDA director position instead of Elizabeth. As this was coming from a DDA board member, this was shocking to hear. On February 14th, during my afternoon job at the Village of Romeo, I was approached by Village President Megan Poznansky. She had asked me how I felt about being DDA director. Not here in Romeo, but in Imlay City.
30
I told her
seconds,
I
Madison.
hate politics, and that I did not feel as though I had the experience to fill that position, but thanked her for believing in me. She said that she wanted to make sure that I can be in a space where I can grow, and that she was certain I could find some people who would write a letter of recommendation for me. As I only work at the Village for 2.5 hours a day, this happened in a very short period of time. Other board members treat me pleasantly and, I presume, think I'm not paying attention to your words and actions. It hurts me to say, but because of this mess, I've lost trust in many people who I thought were once friends. I have 2 sentences left. If Elizabeth is removed, I will be leaving as well. Trust, once lost, is never regained. Respectfully, Madison True Roush. That is my middle name.
Good evening. My name is Ed Kiefer. I live at 160 West St. Clair. My wife and I are residents of the village for the last 17 years. We've known Elizabeth for nearly all of those 17 years. I suspect most would agree that the feeling of community for us and our loved ones is high on the priority list. A feeling of community stems from the relationships that we have in that community. Being a new family in Romeo in 2006, our kids attending Amanda Moore, we met Elizabeth on the first day of school, and our families remained friends 17 years later. What I've learned is that Elizabeth is a community builder by nature. Her desire to do this work is not driven by greed, power, but the intangible rewards that come from making a positive difference, making a community. Elizabeth, David, and her family have been the cornerstone of fostering many lifelong friendships that really define community. A sense of belonging, a sense of acceptance, a sense of connection, a place that fosters growth for things that matter the most, community. It comes as no surprise that the developments over the last couple of years have generated a buzz that includes families wanting to move here because of the energy that has been created here. Although Elizabeth was not one of the reasons we moved here in 2006, her and her family and the friendships made are of the many reasons why we stay. Community.
Hi there, my name is Ryan Romano. I live at 70676 Hillside Court, right in Bruce Township. I just have something interesting to say. So I'd like to start today with a thought experiment. I would like everybody to, if you have a child that lives here in Romeo or has something to do with the community here in Romeo, please raise your hand. Okay, cool, there we go. So I would like all of you to know that all of your children that you've just raised your hand have benefited in one way or another because of the work of Elizabeth Miller. Okay, all right, yeah, cool. Okay, so that's just the beginning of a point. So I would like it to be known, so I've lived here for the past 18 years of my entire life, and yeah, numbers. In all of those 18 years, I have grown up in a thought process that, hey, where you live in Romeo, it's very, antique, it's very cute. You live in a spot, it's very much amped for, the older folk, if you will. And that's not me being offensive, that's just, my observation, right? And I think that that observation has been very much altered by the work that you've done for all the children in this community. Yeah, all right. From the Winterfest that I got to take part in as an entertainer earlier last year, I believe, and one of many things. I don't know. There's so many events here that you've put on for the children here in this community, and it's such a great thing. We often look to see, if we're evaluating someone's job, how well they're doing at their job. We don't often evaluate how are they benefiting us. The person that is doing so much in their job, how is that benefiting us? How is that we beneficiaries of that? And there's an ancient philosopher in the Enlightenment period in Europe about a couple hundred years ago. Anyways, that person argued that we should repay the person that gives us so much, that makes us beneficiaries of so much, that gives us so much as people that we develop, and that whole concept of give and take between people. That person really helped to develop that a whole lot there. And the whole point of that particular statement there is that it's important to consider how each of us have benefited, and how each of our children have benefited from the many the events and the community and the overall the change that I have acknowledged between when I have been growing up here and in such a growing community that has so much to do with so many events here, so many things that makes it a community. It's a small town, and I feel that because of the work that you've done. So yeah, and so. Thank you. I would like to wrap up with just... What's that?
You got 30 seconds.
Okay, fantastic. I can do that. So I would like to wrap up with just a general acknowledgement of, the fact that to spend so much time focusing on this as a community and have this be our main focus is really counterintuitive to everything that we can be achieving as a community here. We've achieved so much, and we can when we all have the same forward motion. So maybe we don't spend so much time evaluating the job of Elizabeth Miller here, and we evaluate the job of the people that criticize her. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dana Walker. I live at 4967 Jefferson Road, North Branch, Michigan. I am the director of the Michigan Downtown Association, a statewide nonprofit organization dedicated to the strengthening of downtowns. We have over 210 members, ranging from Marquette to Monroe, Zeeland to Port Huron, and everywhere in between. The MDA provides our members, like the Romeo DDA, support and resources for their downtown management organization. We understand that downtown management is never finished, that there is always work to be done. Well-organized events and promotions bring visitors to downtown, but more volunteers are necessary for events to run smoothly. Once a park is completed, another one will need upgrades. Downtown streetscape changes from season to season, and attracting new businesses while maintaining relationships with current shops, restaurants, and service industries is always a work in progress. Like I said, a downtown organization and the director's work is never complete. We hope that our resources, like our board training webinars, shareable templates, and network of members help downtown directors and board of directors navigate the ever-changing and evolving world of downtowns. Recently, your director, Elizabeth Miller, used one of the MDA's resources and contacted me regarding personalized training for the Romeo Board of Directors. Along with Kathy Dickens from the Fort County Community Foundation, I spent an evening on Zoom with the Romeo DDA board and director reviewing board of directors and executive directors' roles and responsibilities, while suggesting the creation of committees and giving a basic review of Michigan's DDA law. We also discussed best practices for a well-organized downtown management organization. After the meeting, I felt that Kathy and I highlighted the importance of working together, having one common message, and the roles a board member has versus the responsibilities the director has. I encourage you to continue to educate yourself regarding the roles a downtown development authority has in its community. Continue to use the resources Elizabeth has created for you, like the very, very comprehensive Board of Directors manual and continued education material folders she created, which, by the way, I'll be ripping off and duplicating from my other members.
30 seconds, Dana.
And the MDA webinar series. In today's world, much like this young gentleman just said, people choose to live and set up in a place that offers amenities, activities, community spirit, and vibrancy. Downtown Romeo and your organization seems to have those qualities as evidenced by the crowd in this room. I only see this type of crowd at DDA board members when there is conflict, and specifically when the DDA is in danger. That is indicative that this community cares deeply for your community, for your DDA, but specifically for your director. I appreciate your time. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have regarding best practices for downtown development authorities and directors and the board. As Henry Ford once said, if everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Hall. I was the former executive director before Elizabeth took the job. I couldn't have asked for a better successor. I was at the DDA on a part-time basis. First thing I'd like to do is thank the board members I had the opportunity to work with. You were wonderful to work with. You were supportive. We did get a few things done, even though it was on a part-time basis. When I was appointed at the DDA and then took over as the director, the one thing I always wanted for Romeo to be the best Romeo could be. I told this to Elizabeth on my last day as director with tears in my eyes and hope in my heart for this village. Since that night, I have witnessed exactly what I thought I would. The DDA is alive. We have new events that were fun and exciting. We have events coming up. We have new businesses that are interested in coming here. There are more people coming to town for events, and because of the promotion and positivity that Elizabeth provides. The face and activity level changed after I left and became more dynamic and resulted in the need for a new space. The challenge of a new space was put at the forefront of the DDA needs. Elizabeth, through and with many community partners that are in support of a successful DDA, worked together to provide a beautiful, inviting space for the DDA. The ability to face this challenge head-on speaks volumes about Elizabeth and the ability she has to make our village an even better place. Elizabeth was chosen from a group of applicants because of her qualifications and her experience. Each one of you were appointed to your seat, hopefully for the purpose of assisting with the decisions that need to be made by the board, to follow the policies, the procedures, and the protocol of the board you are serving on. Remember, you are all here to work for the good of the community. All of the residents, all of the businesses, and all the visitors to this village. If you are here to be self-serving, to serve the whims of a chosen few, then you really have no place on this board. Let me end by saying, all of us are not living under rocks, like many of you would like us to believe, like many of you would like to believe. If there are many or one who feel they are better suited for this position than Elizabeth, and trying to take this position is what this is all about, then shame on you for not applying, for not putting yourself out there, and for not being involved. Elizabeth has done incredible things for this village. She is dedicated, strong, and she is smart. And I and many others, as you can see in this room, appreciate all that she has done and will continue to support her in what she does to make Romeo a more vibrant and beautiful community.
Ed Tomaszewski, 42148 Jason, Clinton Township, Michigan. As a business owner, property owner, and a taxpayer, above all, I see that part of my millage goes to the DDA. And it really aggravates me that even though I pay taxes and I own property, I can't vote here. And I must say, for the last 2 years, having Elizabeth make contact with me as a business owner has proved to be an asset. I have a niche business, I own a gun shop, and she's actually been able to get people into the doors, and that's important to me. What I see and hear, excuse me, what I see and hear what's going on with the board is getting to be small town picky politics, and I don't like it. It's just not right. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Good evening, Derek Redmond, 393 North Main. I submitted a letter last week. Thank you, Chair Hayes, for sharing that with the committee. To express my gratitude for all that the DDA has done in the last few years and to commend Director Miller for all her hard work. I'd like to emphasize a few points from that letter and add a couple requests of this committee. I've had multiple interactions with Elizabeth in her role as DDA Director, and without fail, she has been positive, professional, and enthusiastic. I can't think of better qualities for a DDA director. Elizabeth has a true passion for Romeo, and it shows in everything she does. We're tremendously fortunate to have her. Any DDA would dream to have her. Downtown is interesting, welcoming, and fun, and Elizabeth's ideas and efforts are a major reason why. For those of you that this applies, please stop tearing down Elizabeth and impeding the momentum that she has helped build. Stop participating in political games and destroying the positive energy in this small town. Stop calling special meetings on food trucks and employees for your own personal gain. For all of you, please start working together to address the real issues of downtown and to capitalize on the recent success, to ensure that Romeo is a vibrant and welcoming place for many years. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you today. I'm here in support of Elizabeth Miller, current DDA Director. My name is Pam Geddert. I reside in Bruce Township, and I'm the coordinator for the SERVE program and National Honor Society at Romeo High School, as well as the Romeo advisor for the Youth Advisory Committee through the Ford County Community Foundation. My students volunteer thousands of hours in and around our community every year. Elizabeth reached out to me soon after she began the DDA director position, seeking to find out how we can get our youth more involved in the downtown events. That conversation was the beginning of a wonderful partnership that has not only allowed my students to become more involved in downtown Romeo, but also provided them with valuable opportunities for leadership. Elizabeth has a way with people, especially our youth, that makes them feel comfortable volunteering and creates a positive environment that makes them want to continue to help. A few years ago, my SERF students wanted to start an annual fundraiser for our scholarship fund, and our scavenger hunt was born. This past year, the DDA was a sponsor, and we had our most successful event to date. I can say without a doubt that a big part of this was due to the increased advertising and support we received from Elizabeth and the DDA. This event takes place in downtown Romeo, and all of the funds raised through this event go directly to my scholarship recipients. Elizabeth has also helped support the Youth Advisory Committee by allowing us to meet on occasion at the DDA office. YAC is made up of members from 8 area high schools, and we try to meet in each of our schools' towns. This support and partnership across neighboring communities is invaluable for all involved, making connections that help each of our towns flourish. Elizabeth has a love for Romeo that is apparent in all she does and is visible anytime you talk to her about our town. She has nothing but the best interest of the community in mind and has the desire to help our businesses be successful while attracting future tenants to our downtown area. I've heard so many positive comments from friends, parents, and visitors who have noticed all of the improvements that have been implemented over the last couple of years. Elizabeth has a passion for seeing Romeo thrive and grow and conducts herself in a professional manner. Even through stressful times, she displays grace and kindness, never straying from the passion she has to help Romeo maintain its charm. Growth and change can be difficult and sometimes bumpy, but it's necessary for a small town to stay a viable location for restaurants and businesses. I truly hope that you'll be able to see the value that Elizabeth has brought to the table so that she can continue to help make Romeo the best it can be. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ariel. I live on Prospect, and I have family on Main Street as well. First, I'd like to acknowledge the wonderful events that are happening in the downtown. I don't know you personally, but I will say that you have done a wonderful job with getting the energy up and getting people involved. I love the energy in this room. I love the fact that people are getting involved. I'm hoping that more people will continue to get involved and support. I think that, and I'm going to go off script here, but I think that one of the issues that we're not talking about tonight is the fact that we do have a lot of empty storefronts in downtown. And this is not a reflection on you, but it is a reflection on the downtown development. With the fact that we're looking at all around the house interiors leaving, we're still recovering from COVID-19. We're now feeling the effects of the Ford manufacturing facility leaving. I think our downtown businesses are not so much on a witch hunt, and I guess I should say the members. I think people are concerned. I think that they felt supported and encouraged during COVID as small businesses, and now they feel like their voices are not being heard. So yes, the food trucks can seem like a trivial issue, but when you are a business owner, or when you're, let's say, the restaurant, Marty owns that restaurant, you have waitresses in that restaurant looking at those food trucks who pay, what, $50, $25 to have a permit. Those people are trying to eat, and those people are trying to live. And I don't think that this is a reflection on you. I think you deserve all the praise for the energy that you're bringing, but I think that what is important for you is to listen to everyone, and I'm not saying that you haven't, but to listen to people and try to work together, because all I'm hearing is divisiveness in here. All I'm hearing are people rallying in support instead of saying, let's talk about the real issues. Let's talk about the businesses leaving. Let's talk about the fact that, yes, events are important, but our home values are based on whether or not our downtown area is thriving. And our downtown area thriving is based on our business owners feeling supported and, you know, getting that foot traffic that, yes,
seconds.
I know, trivial, but the food trucks do, you know, prevent that foot traffic from going in. So, and I'd also like to reflect on the fact that Megan Poznansky is absolutely amazing. And anybody who would say otherwise, I don't think has known her as long as I have known her. And if you didn't see her traveling up and down the streets with a wagon and chalk, and the fact that she's the only person I know who would take all the money out of her house because she knows she's gonna be here for the rest of her life. She was the person who sparked that passion in me to want to defend my own town. And I really think that you guys all have an opportunity to, right now, to solve the problems here and move forward in support of each other and a thriving downtown area. I love that everybody came out, but I'm a resident here, and I have seen what's happening downtown, and it's not a reflection on you, but it does need to be a priority for you. So, thank you to everyone for allowing actual residents to speak.
Who's not a resident?
All right, Ruth is, all right. Hey, guys, can we be respectful? All right, Ruth has the podium. Ruth has the podium, guys. Thank you.
And I would like to encourage everybody to bring the microphone a little bit closer to their mouth so we can get them not only on tape, but if the other people on the other. And don't put my minutes yet. I'm just starting now. Okay. Ruth Heiderbreck. I'm the founder of the Mitt TV, and I am also working on renovating the Village Park, which is a key piece to this whole business and downtown area. And I've been working with Elizabeth for years. I've known her since before she was the president of the library board, and worked hard through that controversy and bettered our library. I have heard some discouraging things about some of the board members that are sitting here at this table tonight. I have heard from Glenn from Youngers that his people are being talked to by board members. One board member who hasn't even been to a meeting yet. And we understand that all you guys are new and you're trying to come up to speed. We want to be there to help you. We want to be part of the same group of workers that has helped her, that has helped you, that has helped everyone that's been on this board and that is concerned with this village. We have seen such a change using technology. We have Macomb County right now giving us data on every single festival that we have. And we have amazing amount of people that are coming into this town. We have people that have reported to me and to the Mitt TV that they're having trouble because all their friends are coming to their houses and wanting to stay for the whole weekend because there's things to do in this town, including things to do for our children. And we have some amazing students and amazing parents in this community, and they are community driven. They do want to stay home and do things with their friends. I have a list that I won't go through tonight because I didn't know we only had 3 minutes. But the things that have happened in the last couple weeks is appalling. And the rumors that are out in this community are appalling, including the park, including Elizabeth, including members of this board. And we need to come back together as a community, realize that we have a new president. And let me say something.
30 seconds, Ruth.
We should not be penalized because we supported the prior president. Because let me tell you this, that president, even though she was persecuted through the whole process, she was begged to go dirty, begged to go negative, and at no point would she allow that. So she worked with you. We want to work with you. We want to come across the aisle and make this the best Romeo that we can do. I want to say one more thing. The Mitt TV is the largest sponsor of the DDA, beyond Peoples, who just gave them in kind 5 years. So we're the largest. We will stop our support. and a lot of other people will stop their support. Because we do the work and we give the money. We don't want to have any of this. We want to have the workers get together and get busy, because we're doing some phenomenal things, and she's led the way. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Donna Sumnus. I'm a resident and a business owner here in Romeo. My husband and I wanted to fall in love with Romeo when we chose to establish our small business here in 2001. We loved the small town and looked for the big heart of this village and its people. Since having our store, we have seen more enthusiasm than ever before for the downtown among businesses and residents, with Elizabeth Miller as our DDA director. Some of Elizabeth's accomplishments that have directly affected the success of our small business include the following: branding small town big heart as a community ideology, creating an organized, consistent form of communication with businesses, providing informative monthly podcasts, devising and enthusiastically promoting year-round events in our downtown, attempting to extend activities to include the southern region of the CBD, building an inclusive volunteer community. Some businesses and residents are enthusiastic to participate. Small businesses and residents are enthusiastic to participate in events and to support efforts made by Elizabeth. Elizabeth has taken time to introduce herself to us, learn about our small business, and how she can support us. New DDA member Danielle Lee came into our store during Winterfest and a follow-up for Winterfest, a Winterfest game. We are unaware of any other new DDA member coming into our store, introducing herself to us, or asking our concerns, perspectives, or how she can support us. The negativity, restrictions, turmoil, and unrest that has recently been going on in the village with some DDA members is extremely discouraging. There is no I in team, and a team can't be successful with individual agendas. Elizabeth's goal as DDA director is to help our small businesses be successful. She is hardworking, passionate, and a professional collaborator who is always open and direct. We have witnessed these honorable qualities firsthand during DDA and Village Council meetings. The food truck cancellation during Winterfest was an example how some DDA members worked to undermine Elizabeth. She had this event planned, only to have her work destroyed days before the event. Winterfest was considered a family-friendly day. Families may not have bought all their food and beverages in our downtown establishments the day of Winterfest. However, having food trucks throughout the downtown during the event would have allowed visitors to spend more time walking along Main Street and to see everything Romeo has to offer. Thank you. When David and I first opened our store, there were only, thank you. When David and I first opened our store, there were only a few small retail businesses open during Peach Festival. We were always open and even extended our hours. We viewed this event as a time to get as much exposure as possible and meet as many people as we could. For the past few years during Peach Festival, there have been street vendors that sell some of the same products that we have in our store. We believe that we offer a brick and mortar with a positive culture that goes well beyond a weekend of having some street competition. It is not simply about sales during Peach Festival, but about the future clientele that we hope to establish. We compare the street vendors during Peach Festival to that of the food trucks during Winterfest. We welcome variety and inclusion and hope other small businesses will recognize this. With the recent dissension of Romeo's DDA board members, will we ever be able to work together? How can we be enthusiastic and take risks to try something new in a difficult, hostile environment? Do we envision our business as being part of Romeo's future under the dire current circumstances? We are finally beginning to see Romeo's small town big heart under Elizabeth's leadership. We ask that you please work collaboratively with Elizabeth so we can be successful. Sorry.
Hey, Greg, really quick before you start. How many more people are here for public comment to make a, I'm just trying. Make one more. Hold on, can I just get a show of hands just so I can get a count so I know what time we're looking? I'm trying, we've already gone 20 minutes past. Okay.
I'll be brief. My name is Greg Tarr. I'm on the board. I am one of the people who got chosen to be on the employment committee, and I first want to take a minute to apologize to everybody here who might be watching, those down in Ann Arbor, my son, his buddies, whoever, but this is really a bad situation. I spent some time on the employment committee. I don't know how much time I'll have later on to sort of address my perspective of it. I'm one of 3 people. I want to say that Zach has done a fantastic job guiding this board, steady hand, steady mind, a man of integrity, and he continues to work real hard to do it. By way of introduction, I've had a business in town 20-plus years. I own a handful of buildings in the village of Romeo. Every day I go to work, I'm personally responsible for maybe $200 million because of the business I'm in, and that's money we've created. I've got 8 years on the board of the 4-County Foundation, 4 years as a church treasurer with a $1 million budget and multiple parsonage, et cetera, and I go on with the experience. There's been a lot of things done wrong, and I've watched it. I'm going to have an opportunity, hopefully. I don't want to go backwards in this meeting. I really want to go forward, but I don't know how much time I'll be allowed today and how long people will be willing to stick around for this agenda. My hope is we start healing, we kind of move through this, and we figure things out. But I want to apologize to all of you for having to take your time, the energy, and do all this, because there's so many more productive things to be doing, and none of you should have to be here for this. And it's going to be a long meeting tonight. We'll try to move some things around the agenda, but there's certain rules that have to be followed. But I just wanted to take this moment while I had it to apologize and thank you for coming out, and I will share details from my perspective on the Employees Committee.
Lisa, really quick, because you did already have your.
This is just relevant to food trucks. It's just something I want to point out from the time that I was there.
Wait, you can't, you're only allowed one
Elizabeth,
remark.
can you pass those around? Okay, I'm just going to say this.
Lisa, you're only allowed one time at the podium.
Okay, fine.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay. I'm Bob Hart. I live at 188 Tilson. I'm a former DDA board member. It was for almost 8 years. I was the treasurer and ended up as chairperson. So the DDA, ever since I moved here in 2003, has been something that I felt was very important, even though it just helps all of our property values. I saw something that was in a comment that was shown to me that somebody's asking on social media if we really need a DDA. And there are some of the board members that follow that page, and they couldn't mention that we need a DDA. If you're on the board and you don't know why we should have a DDA, then I'm throw that out as a question. When I went through the hiring process, we had Janine Saputo. Many people know. I used to serve with your father.
I served with you.
Yep, he was on, yes, and you did with our garage sale. So, I mean, we have that history. But we went through and hired Janine. As soon as that happened, that just jump-started DDA. It made a whole difference. And I've known Elizabeth. I started work with Elizabeth with our library, and oh my gosh, what a force to be reckoned with. I mean, all the things that happened, but you just stayed true to what you were there for. Your board was there to make the best library, and you did do that. And I watched when you were losing the office. I'm like, oh my gosh, why is that happening? But you and the former chairperson wasn't allowed to continue on the board, did an amazing job in 2 months. And I've been up there in that place. If you haven't seen that, it's amazing. And the last thing I would just say, there was an amazing podcast that was almost 30 minutes long with you with People Driven Credit Union. If that doesn't sum up everything that you're doing and the buy-in from all the people and volunteers, that speaks volumes. All right, and thank you for everybody tonight.
My name is Richard Cairo. I live at 419 North Main, been a resident of the village for 30 years. I've heard everything that's been said here, but some things create real problems for me as a person. And that is the underhanded things that I'm hearing from residents of our community about what some board members are doing. We're supposed to be transparent and we're supposed to be all together. But when people sneak around and have private meetings and talk against other people, it certainly doesn't look like transparency to me, folks. And the DDA is extremely important. I come from a small town. And if we didn't pull together, we'd have nothing going. And so I think this discourse that's going on now needs to have an end put to it. And we need to move on, as many people have suggested, forward together. Thank you.
Hey, Elizabeth. Hi, everybody. My name is Joan. Is this on? My name is Joan Dane, and I'm from Lafayette, 7265 East Lafayette. I moved here from Rochester. I lived there 32 years. And I moved here because I wanted the small town feel. I've also heard everybody say everybody's in Romeo is friendly. Everybody's nice. You walk by everybody, everybody says hello. And so I bought a little house here. And I'm a little nervous, but anyhow, I wanted to get active with the DDA, and I met Elizabeth. And I am just, I can't tell you how much she's changed my life, honestly. So I've been helping as much as I can to tidy up the alleys. John knows me. I'm the person, I'm Joan, that nobody knows. We've cleaned up the alleys. The volunteers have cleaned up a lot of the alleys. We've done a lot of work behind the scenes. You might not know this, over in Megan's side, with the subcommittees that have been created lately. Elizabeth has quartered off the subcommittees here, and the volunteers are taking the subcommittees, which I'm in the lead of, is the beautification committee, is basically cleaning up the community. I got the map from Elizabeth. She sectioned it off into 4 quads. We're going out there, we're cleaning up. You have no idea how much we are doing for you. What we've done is we started off over where Megan lives. We took that whole quarter, that whole segment. We picked up 5 bags of trash, from cigarette butts to children's socks to masks to condoms to bras. Everything disgusting you can imagine was over in that section. I live on, you could say, the neglected side, which really does need some attention, on the east side of the village. And I cleaned up over there. The volunteers that she has brought up in our community to help has been amazing. And I'm so proud to be on her committee. And I'm so nervous about this, but gosh, you guys, please give her support. I came from Rochester. I have never seen such a disgusting thing happen here with that food trucks. I called Elizabeth. I said, I can put 3 food trucks on my property real quick. One day of food trucks is not going to take the businesses away from everybody here to have food trucks once or twice per year. Shame on you.
Rob Wing, 260 Church Street. My wife and I have been in Romeo now for 20 years. We've known Elizabeth, known David and their family all that time. Prior to that, we lived in Rochester for 20 years. You know what I think? I think the board, and not to speak in a bad manner, I think you're intimidated. because you've got somebody here who has transparency. You have somebody here who is, for all of us, check and balance from the board. And if Elizabeth Miller does not continue her role here, it will be a mistake that we will all live with forever. So let's get smart and let's do the right thing. And if tonight doesn't prove it and everything that Elizabeth has done, then we're all living in the wrong place. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Polly Wilson, and I've lived in Washington Township, and my husband and I have owned Wilson Veterinary Hospital. I have known Elizabeth for over 18 years as a colleague, Romeo Schools, and the Romeo District Library, and I've known her as a friend. In the both work capacities, I have always been impressed with Elizabeth's leadership skills, her incredible work ethic, her energy, her intelligence, her integrity, her friendliness, her resourcefulness, but above all, it is her dedication to this community that impresses me the most. Since she's been executive director of the Romeo Downtown Development Authority, she has brought several festivals to our downtown: Winterfest, Vintage Fest, Shriek Fest, all to bring more people to Romeo, where our businesses would profit. Our Romeo name recognition has increased, and Romeo is becoming a destination spot within our Tri-County. She is instrumental in increasing the safety of the public with newly installed crosswalks. The list could go on, but these are the highlights of how Elizabeth has been a catalyst for the Romeo Village. With all that said, it is obvious that Elizabeth Miller should continue as executive director of the DDA because it is in the best interest of the Romeo Village citizens, the Washington Township citizens, and the Bruce Township citizens. We all win with Elizabeth Miller.
Hi, my name is Michelle Gilbo. I live at 278 Benjamin. I just moved in about a month ago, but I met Elizabeth in 2022, Winterfest. I just signed up to help, and she was very welcoming, and I told her my husband and I were building a house on the corner lot. There was a house there that had burned down. And part of the reason why we chose to build here was because of the small town, big heart. And we always felt that way when we would come out here and look at homes. She found out I did accounting, so I helped her with the books. They hired me to do the bookkeeping, but then unfortunately my husband passed away after a couple months of doing that job, and I had to back down, and she was very supportive of me. But during the time I did work there, I had to work at night because I had a full-time job during the day. And almost every time I was there, she was there working. And I know and I also saw her timesheets. I know she put in more hours than she was required to put in. And I listened to her on the phone with people. I saw her trying to bring in the business, and I saw her coming up with these ideas and brainstorming and bringing in volunteers and finding ways to get more and more volunteers. And I also feel it will be a big mistake to get rid of Elizabeth because I couldn't even imagine another person coming in and stepping in and doing what she did. I mean, she dedicated herself to this job, not for the pay, for sure. It's because she loves this town and wants to see it grow. And she's just a good person. When everything happened with me, I had to leave, and she still kept in touch with me, checking on me, making sure I was okay, inviting me to events. That's just the heart that she has, and that's the heart that we want for this position. And I'm very disappointed coming into this town and hearing this all happening. It just really broke my heart, honestly. Was not expecting it, but thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth, for everything.
I'll be very brief because I know we're running long. I'm Christine Melzon, 225 North Main Street. Been a business owner in Romeo for 29 years. I've lived through many versions of the DDA. Served on this board with Janine Saputo. Served on this board as chair when the village tried to eliminate the TIF plan and get rid of the DDA altogether. I've lived through many really poor presidential appointments on a series of boards, this being one of them. And my question to you, my ask, do you remember when you stood in the village hall and you raised your hand and you swore an oath to take this seat, that you were going to uphold the mission of the DDA, the laws of the state of Michigan, and do what's in the best interest of this entire village, not the interest of a few select or yourself? In self-reflection, after this meeting is done, if you are that person, please do us the honor of resigning from this office. If you have created an Opens Meeting Act violation in your deliberations and the communication that's been going forth, resign from this office. Again, this woman has displayed nothing but integrity. I don't have to sing her praises. No one had to come in and sing her praises. Her reputation speaks for herself. How does yours speak for you? Thank you.
Richard Corey, 322 Chandler. Zach, could I ask you to make an amendment to your agenda and move up the bottom item so we don't have to sit through the whole meeting? If somebody would make the motion, second it, it'd be appreciated.
All right, is that everybody for public forum? All right, thank you all. Now, we need an approval of the agenda. To Richard's point, we can't move it under unfinished business, but we can move it up in new business if anybody would like to.
I'll make that motion. We move letter H.
Is it, what is it, G and H though?
G and H, my apologies, up to, I'm sorry. I'll make the motion that we move letter G and H of section 11 up to the top of new business.
So that G would become A, H becomes B, and everything else follows in line?
If there's any way to perhaps table some unfinished business for another meeting, I would like to make that motion.
We can discuss that when it comes to that point in the
Very good.
agenda that wants to be tabled. All right, do I have an approval of the agenda as amended by Tar?
I'll make a motion to.
Motion by Brandt, second by Hutnick. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We have an approval of the agenda. Next up, we need an approval of the minutes for the March 6, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
I'll make the motion.
I have a couple notes.
Is there a motion by Tar?
Andrea had a couple notes, she said.
Under number 6, financial report, there was a directive given to upload the winter fence spend report to the Google Drive.
Okay, so if I, Zach, if I may speak 2 minutes. In 15 years of being on the Romeo District Library Board and 18 months of being the director of this board, it's been the policy and the procedure that if there are any changes to be made, that the office gets contacted ahead of time so those can be done so that the meeting can continue. Zach and I had this conversation. It's an agenda item later on.
So is it just a question if the work has been completed yet? Is that what you're asking,
Yeah,
Andrea?
well, it hasn't. So
would that be covered under my director's report?
Well, no.
Because it's not an
under-
agenda item from the draft agenda.
Well, it doesn't say that it was noted in under the discussion.
It wasn't a board action.
It was directed to upload.
So it didn't have any sort of vote taken at that point, correct? So we were,
I
it
have
was,
to
it
look
was,
back
a-
and
it was,
see.
a- it was a request by the board, so if we could just discuss whether or not that's been done when the time comes, and if we
That's
have
fine.
to direct that to be done in the future.
Sure.
If we need to start taking roll on this for any sort of request, I'd hate to get that, in the weeds on it and
Yeah.
detailed, but if we could just kind of,
Sure. Well, you
address that.
you have meeting minutes as an agenda item under new business, so.
yeah, okay, we can talk about it at that point. Are there any changes that need to be made to the meeting minutes from March 6th? Okay, so I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Motion by Poznanski, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by St. Laurent, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, next up, under financial report, we have the presentation by the executive director. Elizabeth, you're up.
Sure. Now y'all need to see if I know what I'm talking about with finances. Yeah, so financial statements for year are to date from July 1, 2022 to March 29th. The month was closed prior to the end of the month due to the timing of the board meeting. That's consistent. You'll see the last few months because our meetings where they fall so close to the first. All transactions are included with the exception of the interest income for the month of March. Bills presented for approval are $25,189.03. Work completed. Our bookkeeper, Rebecca, entered all invoices, including checks and processed payroll. Plant Moran closed the month through March 29th and prepared schedules for the board packet. At the request of a few of our new members, I have brought copies of all of the checks, including the credit cards. And Madison has a credit card now with, I think your limit is $200, I believe. So it's a $15 spend on that. And you can see every single receipt for the credit card is on there. I know there was interest in having every receipt included in a board packet. This month's board packet is 47 pages long. If we did that, it would be an additional 30 pages. So if that is the will of this board, then we shall do so. So just letting you know that.
Quick question,
Are there any
Elizabeth.
questions?
Yeah, quick question. So like, what could we expect to see on Madison's credit card for a given month? Like, what would the normal type of spend, is it for events? Is it for
Picking up half and half for our meetings, or coffee.
Copies,
Yeah,
just-
possibly a copy. No, not really even copies, because
Okay.
we do have a printer, and any big copying we would do at the print shop. Ace Hard, no, we have an account with Ace Hardware, but it might be Home Depot. It might be, it's pretty minimal.
Okay.
We have our events are kicking up, and so for our Spring Fest that's right around the corner, her working with some of our children's activities, we have a like Oriental Trading or an Amazon purchase, something like that.
So
for
probably better practice than trading a card back and forth.
Oh, absolutely, because we did do that, and yes, that's not a best practice at all, so, yeah.
And just to note, Madison's name is on it, and you
Correct.
have the spending capped, so it's not going to just run.
Correct. We each have a separate card issued with the same bank that was used with Carol Humphreys when she was the treasurer board member, and same company as Lisa Hall. However, that brings a good point. I'd like to, at some point, it's not an agenda item for tonight, of course, but since we do have a phenomenal, generous relationship with People Driven Credit Union, I'd like to see us, at some point, consider moving our accounts to them. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
And they have a governmental accounts as well now that they're just up and running with, so.
We previously had multiple bank accounts at different facilities before, or institutions. Would we keep some
Yeah.
in Tri-County, or would it just make sense to move everything to?
We only have one account.
Right.
It's one bank account. So in my opinion, no, but that could be discussed whenever we look at that at a future date.
Okay.
There is just, because I know sometimes when checks are written to staff, it's like, why is that check there? There's a check made out to me for $138.80 because I accidentally used a personal credit card when I ordered a couple things on Amazon for the new office space. So, and the signers of the checks are myself, Carl Brandt, who's the vice chair, and Zach Hayes. At any time when they're available to sign them, I defer to them to signing, but I do have the ability, but I would never sign my own check. So,
Does anybody have a question on the bills? All right, so then we need a motion for approval of the expenditure of the $25,189.03.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion by Lee. Do I have a second? Second by McLeod. Elizabeth, can you do a roll, please?
Sure. Poznanski?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Brandt?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
St. Laurent?
Yes.
Tar?
Yeah.
Hayes?
Yes.
Hutnick?
Yes.
McLeod?
Yes.
Thank you. Next up, Elizabeth Miller with the DDA Executive Director's Report.
All right. So this is interesting. Hello, everyone. Before I get into my director's report, I would just like to make a personal statement, if I may. For those of you who know me, which is I think almost everyone in this room, I ad lib a lot and can get long-winded, and I'm going to try not to do that. I will respectfully not do that. However, for me to just go on with this board meeting and pretend like the elephant in the room isn't here, I'm just going to say it. Since November 21st, I have experienced nothing but hostility, harassment, retaliation, lack of professionalism, lack of accountability and respect from the office of the village president. I have 2.5 pages of notes of when I wrote it all down on Sunday, I was sick to my stomach of all of the things that have happened, that have transpired. And yet in the end, I didn't just make lemonade, I made limoncello. I have vast experience in policy, procedure, protocol, best practices, board training, community involvement, and I also know how to go against really big bullies. At no time did board member McLeod or St. Laurent ask for any of my accomplishments. You didn't ask.
Elizabeth, I hate to interrupt you, but
Two more things.
Isn't this really more appropriate for your?
Perhaps.
I know.
I will be
Conducting
brief.
a
I have
meeting.
3 last things. My job satisfaction, whether I felt I was being properly given pay, benefits, the state of the office, and all of that. I appreciate you all being here. I am proud to continue with my report and move on. And if anyone has any questions at any time outside of this meeting, and definitely not tonight, please reach out and I will be happy to share any information, documents that you are interested in. All right. Aren't you glad my director's report's only 1 page tonight? Community collaboration, director's report for April 2023. I had the pleasure of attending the quarterly Macomb Partners Luncheon. Presentations by the county and SEMCOG were quite impressive. There was grant money available on electric vehicle charging stations, and there is significant interest in seeing installations in the downtown environment. That was, by the way, the Macomb Partners was something I was invited to participate in since last summer, but hadn't been able to attend yet. The Chamber TNT bi-monthly meetings will begin in April at the DDA office. Thank you, Mike Romano, for reaching out, and we have a beautiful new space that we can accommodate. We are members and partners in the community, as well as people-driven credit union. I was part of the 4-County Youth Advisory Committee quarterly meeting that took place in our new offices. We had over 25 students from around the 4 counties, and it was just lovely. And I know Steve Schmidt is here, the People Driven will be speaking later. It was so fabulous to see all those chairs filled with our youth, our future leaders. And we are partners in the community with via 4-County Foundation, Romeo High School, the SERVE program, and also the National Honor Society volunteers. There's a growing need for larger conversations surrounding the Central Business District businesses and employee parking. In addition, we should consider seeking input from the village in regards to parking enforcement, more time limits, signage, etc. I know this is an area that we've talked about, in my 18 months here, and that is something that hopefully we can figure out a way to have some more communication with the village offices, because that is a growing need. Downtown Romeo is getting an extra story walk. Extra Credit Union, you've probably seen from some of our different events we've had. They are a credit union that is south of here. They have several locations, but they are a repeat sponsor. They have partnered with the Romeo District Library in recognition of Financial Literacy Month. And I believe if you're a business here and you have one of those story walk pages in your window, can you raise your hand? Okay, awesome. I saw a couple pages up. So that was kind of fun because the library committed and they reached out and said, should we reach to the library? And so they made that connection all on their own. Of course, the book is money themed, right? Go figure. And it's always a good topic to teach. The Peace Poles will now be located on private property within the Central Business District due to the confusion at the last Village Council meeting. And so for timing, Grace and I worked together and partnered with a few business owners to make that happen quickly. And I believe, are there 2 going up at the chamber? Okay, so those will be up and they will be on display in time for Springfest, I believe. From the Michigan Downtown Association, the Michigan Downtown Management Series is now available for volunteers, business, and community members. Each webinar is available on demand. The link can be viewed at your convenience and may be shared with your members of your organization, your team, your staff, your volunteers, and it will not expire. If anyone is interested in that, if you are a community business, if you are a volunteer, anyone can watch this management series. It's quite enlightening. The new DDA office space. The new office space is nearly complete. We have been on the receiving end of so many donations, both in monetary form, in-kind services, volunteer time, and so much more. The cabinets that are being custom made by 2 of our residents at cost, at way reduced cost actually, they're going to be installed hopefully this weekend. If you have not seen it, we did a Facebook page, I believe on Friday, that just started to showcase the over 30 people who have donated. And it's phenomenal. It's a beautiful space. We encourage you to come. My next item is, if you are not aware, our open house is scheduled with the ribbon cutting and a joint session, open house with People Driven Credit Union for May 16th, Tuesday, May 16th from 5 to 8 p.m. And this also is in collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce. And then last but not least, downtown beautification. I was informed that by DPW that the one-way sign was reinstalled on the recently opened alley that is known at Marketplace Alley. To my knowledge, all signage is under the jurisdiction of the Village of Romeo and handled by DPW. Our 2023 floral contract is in full swing. The plants are, the flowers have been planted and they're growing well in Jessica's greenhouses. Payment schedules are set up and documented in the office, and the maintenance contract is also on schedule for, is also on track for scheduling. Sad to inform you though that our hydrangea tree in front of the Masonic Lodge, I wasn't sure if it was vandals. We weren't here the weekend of that massive storm, and it seems like the snow took it out. So we're gonna have to get a new tree in that box that was right in front of there. So that is my, any questions regarding my director's reports?
Elizabeth, I just want to mention that regarding one of your points, you talked about the growing need for larger conversation on CBD business and employee parking.
Yeah.
Just to fill you in, that's actually begun. It is in one of our 4 pillars, fortunately.
Okay, great.
So what I've been familiar with, that's high on the priority list in that committee, just so that the rest of the board knows as well.
So to that, since we've done so much work on it before, it would be helpful if you chose to take me in on that conversation, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel on that one. So it might be helpful, so.
The rest of this, thank you very much. Good work here.
Thank you. I believe we are now on to, so Madison has her events report, and maybe we'll just be a little on the briefer side on this one for time's sake.
Alrighty, hello again, everyone. So I do my events reports. I do a little looking back, a little what I'm working on now, a little bit of looking forward. So looking back, last meeting we looked at the Winterfest data and realized we're looking at last year's data. So I have the updated data. Woo, exciting. So just for your knowledge, last year's Winterfest, February 26th, we had 5,000 visits with an average dwell time of 112 minutes. Pretty good for the first event. And then we were asked to do the Winterfest this year, the week prior, and the week after, so we can see what the traffic was, different times and all that. So the week before, this year's Winterfest was January 28th. This is that Saturday. Downtown Romeo had 3.3 thousand visits with an average dwell time of 158 minutes. Pretty good. This year's Winterfest, February 4th, 5.8 thousand visits with an average dwell time of 166 minutes. The week after, February 11th, 3.6 thousand visits with an average dwell time back to 158 minutes. So, unlike looking at last year's data, we had an increase in visits and dwell time from 2022 to 2023. I was hearing a lot from people, kind of felt that there was less traffic walking down the streets. A lot of our events were inside. We had musicians inside, a lot of people congregating inside for internal events. In my events report, I have just the first, the third page and the sixth page from each Placer AI data. Full documents are available at request because that would add like an extra 30 pages to an already long board packet. This month, you guys may have heard, we're doing Spring Fest. Woo, spring. So instead of working on Arbor Day, because that was moved outside of the central business district, we are using that same funding that we were going to put towards Arbor Day, towards still doing something for our downtown. So that's where Spring Fest was born. That was something that came out of our volunteer and event committees. So you see, it's the 27th through 30th, that's the Thursday through Sunday. This isn't just us doing things. We've encouraged downtown businesses to put on their own specials. We're not asking them to do sales or any sort of, half off if you wear this sort of thing. If they want to, they can, but we didn't ask that. Any sort of specials, activities, that's going to be happening Thursday through Sunday. We're also going to be having live musicians downtown again. They have brought in a lot of involvement from multiple different musical organizations. I'm sure you all know of Suzanne Rauch. She is wonderful and has been a great asset to our community, and I love her dedication so much. She's the one who's been responsible for most of these musicians downtown. As you see, all of our printables are complete. Ooh, if you want some, I have a box of them. They are brochures. This is the first time that we're doing brochures. So you all, business owners, residents, will know what's going on about a month ahead of time. So from last meeting, that was one of the goals. We are increasing lead time for events, so you all know what's going on. So that's pretty exciting. If you guys have any questions or concerns about this event, please let me know. We have things printed, but if there's something that needs to be changed a little bit or something, that, hey, what's going on here? I'd like to add something. My business wants to incorporate something new. That can always be added through social media. One thing that I'd like to recognize is that there is a high level of community organization involvement. Something that we touched on briefly was the peace polls. Those are being tied into this event, and that is done by Starkweather with help from the Romeo Rotary, as well as the Michigan Municipal League. They are recognized on these posters, a little corner here, peace polls, thanks to. We also work hand in hand with SERV and NHS all the time, as Pam had spoke to earlier. We are bringing in the Peach Queen in court to do some storytelling. They're going to be reading some stories for the little children coming downtown. We work hand in hand with the Chamber of Commerce, who's having their Tippler's Beverage Tent on Saturday, April 29th. Exciting, all right. We've also been working with the Romeo District Library, the Romeo and Juliet Garden Club, as well as multiple different musical organizations represented in all of our lovely performers. I have been working in collaboration, so we set up these different focus groups for our volunteers, so we can have different leads. I've been working with all of those leads, as well as the Event and Volunteer DDA Board Liaison. All of this has gone through. All of our leads, all of our volunteers and community members that have come to our meetings, as well as the liaison. At the end of my report, I have looking forward for Spring Fest marketing and final adjustments. It's out. Grab a piece, come on out. And then as well as the 8-week concert series and the Vintage Fest coordination. Those are both agenda items that are in unfinished business. So that's
Guys,
what I have.
I have a quick question for you. How many runners did we have come out for the 5K this year?
I think it was over 300.
Yeah, I want to say it was over 300.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
For Spring Fest.
Yes.
I asked Danielle to get with you guys on the volunteer and event committee to have a breakdown of the budget for Spring Fest. Because I know we're using what was earmarked for Arbor Day, but on our budget, there's nothing earmarked for Arbor Day. So what are we spending on Spring Fest, and where are those funds coming from?
I can answer that.
And then same thing for Vintage Fest.
Mm-hmm.
What's the budget for Vintage Fest, and where is that?
Yes, so we can talk about that in the agenda item, but we have a category budget, a one-page category budget, and within a line item, all of those events go under that, and if we use more in one event, it can be moved up in a line item budget, which is an internal document, but we provide that to the board.
Right, so there's not a line item from Arbor Day that's going to this?
Well, there's a lot, I guess I could pull that out and we could talk about that when we get to a different section, if that's okay.
So right now, it looks like, if I'm reading do we have a $2,400 surplus in CBD events? Or actually, no, 6,000.
No, we should have
have it in front of me.
a lot more than that. I don't have that right in front of me, Zach, I'm sorry.
And just to answer your question about Vintage Fest, we will budget.
For next year.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that's going to be when we do the workshop.
Right, but the
our-
workshop's the 14th, right? So we kind of want to know what we're looking at.
Well, I think that's when the discussion will come up with how much we want to spend, how much
During
we
the
want to
agenda
allocate.
item.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
So that should take care of that.
So, but for Spring Fest, since it's just a couple weeks away, we kind of want to know what we're looking at spending, right?
Okay, so if I can speak to that, Zach?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so on multiple occasions, and it was before the new board members were on this board, but the events calendar was brought in draft form. It went over extensively in the volunteer committees. It was talked about with the former chair, with the former officers and whatnot, brought before this board, went over extensively, and the events calendar was approved.
Sure.
It was also brought before village council. Within that, we have an events category in our budget. And within that category, in an internal document, there are line item budgets in there. So you all have approved the budget at the category level.
Right.
And then within there, staff can move the funds within those couple line items. So there has not, you approve that overall, and until there's a policy that's slightly different than that, we've been pretty.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just asking,
Sure.
what are we spending on
Yeah,
Spring Fest?
I think that's more
It's a
the
general
breakdown
question.
of
What are we-
Okay. I
marketing
think- okay,
expense. This
so-
is for,
So last year, for your knowledge,
Well, I mean, for this year, what?
yeah,
are we
but this is what we're basing off this year's off of, because that last year was our first year doing Arbor Day and participating with Arbor Day. We had budgeted $2,000. So I'm going off of that same earmark to budget for this
For
Spring Fest.
Okay, so we're looking at about $2,000 for Spring
Yeah.
Fest.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
and Danielle, I don't know if you can provide any insight to that. Do you kind of?
No, and I talked to Madison about this briefly, because in the event subcommittee meeting, we don't talk about budget. Budget isn't discussed with the volunteers, so I wasn't privy to that. So I mentioned to Madison that we would have to have something, some information, and that's what she's providing now.
Okay.
So, yeah. Any other questions?
I would just like to say, Madison, that you did a phenomenal job on these brochures and the flyers and working with the volunteer group and pulling this all together. I think you did a really nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Madison. Next up, we have no funding requests this month, so we'll be moving on to committee reports, volunteer and event subcommittee report. Danielle, you want to take the floor on that?
I think Madison's pretty much covered, in the interest of time, everything that has happened in the last month and what we're doing, so I really don't have anything to add to that.
Okay. Moving on, employment subcommittee report. I don't know if there's anything that needs to be addressed now because we're going to cover it under new business,
Yeah,
so.
I can just give kind of a general recap, just to touch base on kind of how we got here, but we had 3 meetings. March 16th, the 3 of us met. March 23rd, Deborah and I met, and then March 27th, the 3 of us met. Greg was by phone for about 30 minutes, and then I think you were out of state, so you had to leave a little bit early. So then Deborah and I continued the meeting. And just to kind of give some clarification, because a lot of questions were asked. During this meeting, we reviewed the job description that was given to Elizabeth upon hire, the original goals set for her, 6-month goals that were given to her in June of 2022. Those were provided to us by Elizabeth. We also reviewed letters and communications received by the board from board members in regards to the director's performance. We only reviewed anything that obviously had signatures attached to it, and those sorts of things. We provided all communications to the board members. There's a lot of question about who's completing reviews. We provided the review documentation to the entire board. Anything further from that, I think we should probably wait until we get into the actual
I
meat and
disagree.
potatoes.
Greg, go ahead.
I'd like to take a few moments here and give my perspective and account of what happened and kind of how we got here. I will be as brief as possible, but as thorough as possible, and I have spoke with Elizabeth. She's informed me that when it does become her time for the closed session, she won't be requesting that. So anybody who chooses to stay around for that, that of course is Elizabeth's decision, and at any time she can request to go to closed session, and that would mean it would be closed session. So we will get to there. I do want to make one comment. I hope, and we'll get to this, I hope we can juggle things. I, again, apologize to everybody, and especially our friends from the People's Driven Credit Union. They have to sit through this and take their time and hear some of this. If there's a way we can flip them a little bit, rather than moving them all the way down when we get to new business, we will. But let me just go and give my account of what happened. On March 16th, we had our first employee committee. I met with Deborah and I met with Andrea, two people who I'd really never interfaced with before. Deborah had never been to a board meeting before, and Andrea, I had only passing knowledge of who she was. First time I'd ever met her was maybe a month earlier or so when she was assigned to the board. I showed up at the meeting with them two, the two of them, and I was provided a folder here that contained various tabs. It had in it an agenda, it had in it communications, it had in it a social media policy and director's goals. The director's goals that were in the package provided at that first meeting was from June 6, 2022. Elizabeth was hired months prior to that. To say that there was no job description in the package. So we began discussing this package, and I was asked to read the letters inside the package, and I flipped through them, and there were, I think, 4 of them. 3 of them were written from board members. They were not friendly at all. Elizabeth can share the content of them if she chooses to when the time's right.
I don't have them, I've never seen them.
Okay. If she wants me to provide them, I'll be glad to provide them as long as it's appropriate for the chair. I read them, I was confused by them. They were very degrading and pointed out a lot of negatives. There was nothing in there positive at all of what Elizabeth had done. I asked if somewhere in this package was were Elizabeth's job description, and I was told they couldn't get it. It wasn't there. And I said, why? They couldn't get it. They said they asked everybody. And I want to back up. When I left that meeting, I dictated a page of notes, and probably within 10 minutes of that, I called Zach to back brief on the meeting. My recollection is very clear of all this. I went through and asked them that had they asked me for a copy of the job description, since I was one of the people that hired Elizabeth originally, and they said no. I said, did you ask Kelly Stevens, our prior chair, Zach's position? And they said no. I said, well, I don't think it's fair that we work with an evaluation that isn't evaluating a director on the job she was hired to do. They had provided a job evaluation here, and I flipped through it briefly, and I read it, and there wasn't much in there that really can pertain to what Elizabeth was hired to do originally. In the interest of time, understand when Elizabeth was hired, as Lisa Hall had alluded to, you know, there wasn't a lot going on in the DDA. She had to do a lot of stuff, like build a website, square away the accounting. A young lady was here, spoke earlier, who was our first person to help out. I think she may have left, but there was a lot to do, and she did that. So a lot of banter went back and forth about Elizabeth's handling of food trucks and these types of things a lot of us have heard. And at that point, I began seeing that, you know, this thing was going to go a little bit sideways. And I pushed back and said, look, I think that this evaluation needs to have at least spots on there that are marked NA, not applicable. I told them I refused to fill out the employee evaluation because I didn't think it was accurate and it didn't reveal the questions that should be asked. So from that discussion, I was stirred up enough about it that I went back and I created a 20-question document, and I invited Elizabeth to my office to answer for some of these accusations that were made about the overspending in the credit union build-out, spending $14,000 on cabinets, on the cusp of coming to the board for more money. These things that were said in that 15, 20 minutes were just things that really shook me, honestly. She came to my office politely, sat down, we visited for probably 40 minutes. I asked her the 20 questions. She answered them to the best of her ability. She was accused of not hiring contractors properly, for overpaying for equipment or tool, you know, materials, whatnot. I interviewed 2 of the contractors that did the work there. They did the work for free. They couldn't have done it any cheaper. I was perplexed, but I wanted to be fair-minded, and so I took the time. I took a lot of time. I've taken too much time. So I got to this point where I asked the 20 questions. I went through, got her answers. And then, at that point, the barrage of emails sort of went back and forth. There was discussion about her choosing the bank location. It was a bad idea, and that it was that the credit union was doing us no favors by providing it to us, and that it was kind of in shambles when we took it over. I said, well, I think the credit union probably could have come up with $20,000 on their own to renovate it, and ever since I was a young guy, there was a real estate office up there, so there was certainly economic opportunity for the credit union to use that. So we went back and forth on that, and that you know, during that meeting. So I asked her questions about what she spent, you know, who she used and how she did her quotes and all that. And then I went and talked to 2 of those contractors that did a big bulk of the work to confirm what I thought to be true. The discussion pivoted to accusations of directors' ethics and ethical violation. I asked for specific examples. That discussion back and forth about credentials and social media. There was an accusation that she wouldn't relinquish social media credentials, and that she removed them from Megan when she became a member on this board. But yet, when Christine was a member on the board, she had those credentials to access social media. I interviewed Christine Molzon, asked her if she ever had them, and she said she never did. It wasn't part of what she had, and it was never. So I got the answers that I thought were, you know, the direction where I had sensed things were going to be going. There was talk about the tree board, which I had no knowledge of, that for some reason Elizabeth was accused of not surrendering credentials to access the tree board, and I tried to get clarification on that, speaking to Elizabeth's husband, but I wasn't able to connect with him to sort of clarify how this happened or what was going on, because he was a member or is a member of the tree board. I have no idea about the tree board, but it just didn't sit right. I spoke with Kelly Stevens, the prior chair, and accessed a copy of the job description from when Elizabeth was hired a number of months ago, just to start looking at that compared to what they had put together for a job description. So there was further push for me to complete the survey during the discussion, and there was an expectation that the three of us would complete this survey, and that we would then kind of bring it back to the board and then sort of give our recommendation of what we should do. Well, if anybody completed this survey, she would have been buried from the start. The 3 letters that were in her file, or 3 of the 4 that were in there, were from 2 people on the evaluation committee, employee committee, who I asked Andrea point blank, I said, Andrea, do you think Elizabeth should be the director? And she said no. I said, okay. I don't know.
Based on the job description. And Greg, if you
No,
want
I'll
to.
finish.
On the one that's in
Hold
the
on.
file. On the one that is in the file. Greg, your comment.
Let me finish. The other
Because it's
person
all
that
private
created the
information. You can
evaluation
see
had
it.
not been to a board meeting, so this whole thing kind of shook me up. So I'll try to get to the punchline
Zach,
here.
I would like to respond.
You'll be.
You'll be given an
Okay,
opportunity.
thank you.
So I went through this. I asked them if they, I asked them when they created the evaluation, did they indeed have a copy of the director's job description, what she was hired to do? I was told that they did not, and they
It's
were
in your
unable to get one
packet.
from anyone. I said, did you check with me? We've kind of covered that. So I asked, the accusations were flying about integrity and ethics were sort of the theme of this thing, and I was perplexed, and I said, give me an example of something that's gone on. And there was no specific concrete example of some nefarious activity that was going on. Deborah made the analogy of, Greg, if you had an employee who was stealing money but yet did a good job, would you keep them? And that's when I stood up and I terminated the meeting. I said, I'm done here. Do not ever in my presence again make an accusation or use that as an analogy in any shape, manner, or form. There is no discussion about stealing money. There's nothing going on here. I'm done. I'm not filling out the evaluation. At the conclusion of that meeting, a barrage of emails ensued for a few days back and forth. We agreed to reconvene. At some point, they had a meeting that I really frankly didn't want to be part of. On 3/28, when I was in California, I told them I'd have about 30 minutes to spend some time on the phone, but I knew where this was going. So we had the same back and forth discussion about how you could create an evaluation without a job description. I asked, they said they went through, I have emails to back this up, that they had gone through and looked at a number of DDAs of similar size and budgets and created a job description from that. I use the analogy specifically that it'd be like evaluating a quarterback and a linebacker, both football players, with the same job evaluation. It's just not right. So Andrea began to separate herself a little bit from it, stating that, hey, Deb put it together, and I pushed back and said, the email clearly says we did this, so who is the we? So it was done. I was not involved in the job description or the evaluation. I had no part in it, and I took no part in putting it together. To fast forward a bit, when I was in California, there's some back and forth. There's another member on this board who chose not to fill it out. He sent an email stating that he felt uncomfortable, that it wasn't fair. I knew that was the case. I had a meeting with them on the phone when they were beginning to discuss how they would put this information together. And Deborah said, well, I'm closely paraphrasing, the individual who didn't fill it out, maybe running it over here shortly, might have had technical problems. There's an email, I was on California time, there's an email that came out earlier that day that said, hey, I'm not filling this out, it's not gonna work. I knew when she said that, that evaluation was never gonna end up in her office or in her hands. So I challenged her on that, and we had a little bit of back and forth. I eventually asked Deborah, how many board meetings has she actually attended? And she then asked me how many board meetings I've been effective at. So at that point, I decided it wasn't going to go anywhere. I left it. I had some communication back and forth with Zach on this, and then we could go on and on with it. That is a high-level account of what transpired, and I think it's what's put us in this position. As we all know, there was a meeting called on Saturday, and The rest is kind of where we are. And I think a lot of it centered around this evaluation that was created that was, I think, certainly designed to sack an employee and give them no chance of success.
Andrea? you
Yeah,
have the
I'd
floor.
just like to respond quickly. So there's a lot of misrepresentation in what you've just said. When we had our first meeting, you were asked to provide any agenda items. You were asked to provide feedback, you were asked to provide input. You had nothing to say, no input. I hesitate to say this out of respect for Elizabeth, but your comment at the meeting when we met on the first meeting was, yeah, Elizabeth probably isn't cut out to be an executive director, but for the money, and compared to who applied, she was probably the best option for the job. And I'm sorry to say that in front of you, Elizabeth, but that's what you said, Greg. So you want to be very careful about when you want to sling mud and what you want to say here, because that's not a fair representation of what happened. If you go in the packet that you were handed on that first meeting, there is a piece of paper that says job description. That was handed to me when I met with Elizabeth, and she handed me her employee files. If you remember, Elizabeth, I picked them up from you, and you provided that to me.
It's not there. It's 6/6/2022.
There is a job description in your packet.
No, it's
Yes, there
from
is.
6/6/2022.
There is a job description in that packet, and then there is also if you remember, Elizabeth, you also gave me a set of goals that you were given in June of 2022.
From the employment committee.
From the
correct.
employment committee, sorry. Those were given to you. So you're saying that that was not there. You're saying that we created something. That was handed to me by Elizabeth, and that was presented to you. So you
Andrea,
can say
I
that if
asked
you want to.
Specifically, do you have a job description?
And I told you
And
it is in the
said no.
packet. That's not true.
Yeah.
All right, I would
That's not
prefer
true,
that we
Greg.
don't
It's
get
in
in a
your
back and
packet.
forth. We are going to discuss this further. I think it's safe to say,
Then if
Greg,
you
don't,
did, just for
you
one
don't,
moment,
hold on, Greg.
why would your evaluation have nothing to do with her job description?
It did have to do with her job description. And we
There's-
asked you for feedback.
If you look
didn't
at the
provide it.
evaluation
You
questions-
didn't bother to come to the second meeting. You didn't bother to attend the third meeting other than for a quick phone call. You've not participated. You didn't provide any feedback, any involvement, other than a couple of one-liners that you decided to throw in. You blamed it on the board. You blamed it on the previous chairperson, that they didn't properly manage. They didn't properly
No.
give guidance. Yes, you did.
I want to make this clear. This board has not even seen an employee review yet. We don't know what we're looking at later in this agenda. I would ask that we all refrain from making any more commentary on it until
agree.
this board has had a chance to review whatever we are going to be presented with tonight. Otherwise, we're going to go back and forth talking about this all night long. So if it's
Absolutely.
okay with everybody,
fair.
I'd like to proceed with the meeting.
That's fair.
Thank you.
Zach, if I may,
Go ahead.
I'm not commenting on any of that. One thing that is best practices for boards, and remember, this is a governmental body, and so we're beholden to different practices and procedures than an HOA or a business, minutes and that type of thing. So my recommendation, as your director, as your current director, is under 9 committee reports, if there are leads for each of these committees, these subcommittees, that you submit a written report that is part of the board packet. It will alleviate problems with back and forth of agenda, whether or not the minutes are done right, not right. I mean, written subcommittee reports are quite effective, especially for historical purposes, because you can go back to those board packets.
So I think
and-
what
Can
we'll-
we make that as a
we'll-
motion?
Yeah, we'll have to assign a chair.
Yeah,
You
we
have an
can make
agenda
this
item later
separate
on, which is for your subcommittees, you could do it under
As an
that.
agenda there.
Mhm.
Perfect.
All right, so moving on, next we have 4 pillars subcommittees. We formed those subcommittees at last month's meeting. I think most of the subcommittees have met at least once at this point. We have organization, promotion, design, and economic vitality. I don't know if there's been.
One exception on the 4, I believe, organization is not being able to meet.
Okay, no problem.
How many times did the promotion, just for record?
I have a little blurb. if
So how
you
many
want me
times
to-
did you meet then?
Well, we met twice.
Okay.
So should I go now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we've met twice, the promotion committee met twice, but we haven't met with all 4 of us together yet. So we've had a couple kind of ad hoc meetings. So we haven't had any final decisions made. But we have received some feedback from businesses downtown. Marty's kind of been the lead on that, being the merchant on our board. I'm sorry? So a lot
I
of-
was put where Zach put me, so.
So there's a lot of interest. It's a promotions committee.
Yeah, everybody's on 2 of the subcommittees, and those were formed at last month's meeting.
Okay, so we've received some good feedback from businesses downtown who are very interested in taking part and taking a lead in a lot of the events that we're doing. So what we've talked about, and again, we haven't formally come together and made final decisions, but we have talked about the DDA and our promotions pillar being a support to the merchants in funding them and letting them take the lead on a lot of the events downtown, and then discussing that the DDA is going to focus more on marketing the downtown in Romeo as an overall continuous year-round strategy and highlighting merchants events and letting them be the focal point in actually running the events, and then we'll be the backbone to them in promoting the downtown.
Thank you, Andrea.
You're welcome.
All right, Deborah, did you want to comment on the design subcommittee?
Sure. How many times did you guys meet?
We have met once. We have a meeting again Wednesday. The design committee is Greg Tarr, John Rhodes, and myself. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. We discussed creating a plan, a timeline, and a budget for restoring failing infrastructure, including parking lots, sidewalks, and the tree grates on the DDA. We also briefly touched on renovating alleys into gathering spots, which can be funded through grants. I mentioned that there are many local, state, and federal grant programs and other creative sources for fundraising, including engravable brick pavers for legacy purposes and things like that. We discussed getting a copy of the previous parking study, which was performed a number of years ago, but decided we probably need to get a new one done with specific parameters to match the desired outcome, which is a better consolidation of parking to keep the Four Corners area looking like a historic village and not a hodgepodge of parking lots and alley parking and stuff like that. We also need to get advice on how to install some ADA compliant parking while still preserving our historic building features. At that point, we were trying to get a little more specific, and Greg Tarr had suggested that we pick 3 projects to accomplish over the next 4 years because it took nearly 12 years to accomplish the first dumpster corral. He suggested that we immediately start planning to build a dumpster corral behind JL's. We disagreed and suggested that we set our sights on fixing the parking lots first because it affects most of the people in the village, or a bigger majority of the people in the village. And if any of the parking lots are expanded, consolidated, or relocated, as our economic vitality plan develops, we may have to tear out a dumpster corral that we just installed, and we wouldn't want to do that because they're pretty expensive. And then we agreed as a group to break off and get back together and bring up the discussion again at the next meeting, and we adjourned the meeting. We are tentatively scheduled for April 5th for the next meeting.
Clarity there, Greg Tarr didn't say build a dumpster corral. Greg Tarr's been asking for more than a year for a staked survey for the properties behind the buildings so we know where the lot lines are before we do anything.
Agreed. We all agreed on that.
So, but Greg Tarr didn't say immediately start building a dumpster corral, okay? The other thing I want to say, Zach, forgive me, but Kelly doesn't know what I'm going to ask her. Kelly Stevens, how long after did I text you and ask you for a copy of Elizabeth's job description?
Greg, we're off topic.
I get it, but her saying that it was in the package, it wasn't there.
It's in the package.
No, I asked her for it because
You may have asked her for it.
Okay, all right, guys, come on. I didn't want to use this. Come on. It's satisfying. All right, thank you, Deborah.
You're welcome.
All right, economic vitality. Do we have a report from the economic vitality?
Danielle?
Greg, did you want to speak to it, or do you want me to?
No, you can. Go
Okay.
ahead.
How many,
We
just
met
for
we met once, Elizabeth, when you were there at the office. We talked about some business retention programs. We had some businesses that asked for monthly workshops, things like social media help, accounting help, things like that. So we wanted to see if we can put that as a topic that we can start. An e-commerce virtual Main Street platform with our new web developer, possibly having something where businesses could put sales that they're having. If I, put my name in at the Office Pub and it tells me that FAMS has a sale, I can go across the street, something like that. So we talked about various options for retention. We also talked about, for business development and recruitment, a incubator program. We spent quite a bit of time talking about that and what options that we would have to utilize some buildings downtown, getting new businesses in town and helping support them. We brought up parking lots and wiring behind buildings, so that seems to be a topic in all 4 of these pillars that we want to cover. Additionally, some placards for historical buildings downtown, and I think that's pretty much covers it. Greg, did I miss anything?
No, you did a great job with the incubator programs, so good.
Thank you, Danielle. All right, so that wraps up committee reports. Moving on to unfinished business. Line item A, downtown events. First up is Vintage Fest event permit request, Village Council meeting, April 18th, 2023.
Sure, so while Madison's making her way to the podium, this was put in this month's board packet at the request of the promotions committee needing to want to review some things. And so it's, anytime a board packet is put together, it is put together for the, because I know some of you haven't been in some training and so you're not familiar with what the process is, but when it says draft across it, it's not a done deal. You all have the ability to say yes or no to absolutely anything. So you're in charge of that. So putting this in here, Madison included 3 or 4 pages in. You'll see it was the historical documents, the next 4 pages from Vintage Fest 2022. So you can see what was accomplished last year. Madison, you have extra copies of this, correct?
Yes.
All right, why don't you,
a couple of them.
where are they at? I can get them.
They're in the box.
Okay, I'll grab them, just in case anybody wants to see them.
So, Vintage Fest. I'll try to go briefly, because the main thing with this is, for going forward for the village, we need to request the road closures. And I wanted to make sure that that was put out of the way, so we are all on the same page with what roads want to be closed, how big this event could be. So if you look at the map, oh, it's a little hard to see when it's black and white. Last year, I had just the north block of town. Oh, got a colored one. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's easier to tell what these markings are. Last year, I only had the north end of town closed. There was a lot of feedback from businesses where this did not benefit the south end of town that much. So I like to extend that closure down all the way down to Washington, with 32 still being open. I ran this by our police chief just to see, hey, is this logical? And he's like, as long as 32 is open, we're good. So you see on the orange, I'd like to have vintage cars and campers all the way down Main Street, so all businesses can benefit from having people walking down, looking at these cars, looking at all the cool people walking down. I also have marked, there has been feedback from Winterfest that we needed better signage and more access to restrooms. So there is a thought of putting extra restrooms down at the south end of town, a couple down where we've had them a few times in the municipal lot behind the gas station, as well as I put them on there by Newberry, as I know that the chamber is planning to have another beverage tent. When people are drinking, they need to use the restroom. Also in the plan for this year, still having the stage, having musical artists all day, dancing in the street again. That'll be fun. Now, What I think we're all kind of waiting for me to mention is food trucks. So, well, I did put them in. I added them in because I thought it was due for a discussion. I am aware that we had a lot of response from our downtown restaurants about food trucks possibly being a concern. I'm also aware from the survey data we collected for Winterfest that many of the public, I believe, I don't want to say numbers right now. I will get you numbers, but I don't have the.
It was in last month's board packet.
Yeah, it was in last month's board packet. There were many comments saying, yes, we would love food trucks. So it seems like there's this happening right now. I feel like that's a good way to put it. So, you see in my outline, I did throw on food trucks, 10 to 10. That might be a little much. I'm going to...
Yeah, they won't stay that long.
Yeah, no. Since this is a draft, I like putting things at an expanded time. I like shooting for the stars for an expanded budget. Because you never know. Sometimes a vendor might want to come in 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Or sometimes after work, they're like, hey, let me come in at this evening. So I wanted to give that flexibility. So the reason that I kept food trucks on there was we had a tremendous amount of people come out. And this was my capstone project. If you all remember when it was approved the first time, food trucks were approved the first time that I presented this. So this is kind of a passion project for me. I would like the chance to attempt food trucks and to see, so we can collect data from both. We didn't have food trucks at Winterfest, and we collected that data. I would like to collect data from Vintage Fest this year with the inclusion of food trucks. Now, I know one of the concerns that was brought up was permitting, and that permitting was unfair to restaurants because it was $25. I can see that being a little low. I would like to set up some different meetings with communities who have food trucks with different restaurants so we can get a fair pricing that's also in line with village ordinance. So does that sound like a reasonable request, the request to try an attempt?
So Madison, when we came out of that last discussion about food trucks, that was definitely one of the sticking points. It's got to be, if they're going to come into town and, be a part of the event that the taxpayers are putting on, yes, it's great to have the variety, but at a $25 buy-in, does it really make sense? I think we also need to determine if it's $300 a food truck, what's that $300 going to go towards? It's not just to put back into our coffers, it's to maybe use as a marketing expense to help bring more people into town. And the other hang-up was just the transparency as to what food vendors were going to be there. I think that's very important. But yeah, that's definitely a policy that we need to fine-tune, and I don't think this board would be against looking at that. I don't want to speak for everybody. I am not a restaurateur, and I know it hits a little closer to home to some of the other members on this board. So I would definitely think now would be the time for them to have the floor and speak if they choose to do so.
If I could explain the mapping a little bit, the logic behind that, if that's okay, because it might help address some of the questions and concerns.
Yeah, because I think we talked about that at the last, when this originally came up for discussion, we were talking about kind of having a designated area where they would all fall, and that was kind of like the compromise that we were proposing. Or that John, I think, had actually
So
proposed. there's
a lot of logic and thought process through this mapping, which is the same that happened for Winterfest. For those of you who've been to some place like Epcot Center, they don't have a designated space for just the outside food vendors. They have them integrated throughout because not everybody wants to go inside. Some might want to eat outside, and they keep foot traffic going. So in that in mind, I mean, again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So taking off of, the very successful Disney World, when we, in our purpose, and this has been my goal since day one, is to drive traffic from the north end of town all the way to the south end of town. John, you were instrumental in changing the first Winterfest by getting people all the way in the south end of town by doing some events down there. So the beauty of having, and it's not just, keep in mind, from Winterfest, there were only 2 actual trucks. Most of them were like little trailers, so it's not like this massive, like what you see in Peach Fest, like where there's the big, the coney things and whatnot. So the idea, if you look at on the north side where there's a small green circle, the idea of putting some there is to draw people back into the village park. And then where you see the blue, and I apologize that we still don't have a good copier system in the office yet. So, but that's where the stage is, and so if people are there and they're dancing, they're listening to music and whatnot, they're like, oh, there's a food thing, right? And they might go around and spend and go through there. By having other ones spread, like having some on the south end of town, businesses like Old World Nouveau, Honey Pie Kids. He doesn't sell any type of retail stuff, so it wouldn't help him. But there's other businesses on that end of town that would benefit from somebody walking with, say, something. So that's the thought process. Is if you throw something all in one section, you don't get the benefit of people walking from one end to the other. So there's a lot of research behind this, and there's the article that Lisa, I think, just handed you, the science behind it, and so forth. So. I didn't know she was going to say that, let's try, the option of trying something. That's what the former board did. They gave me vast freedom to try, and it allowed me to succeed immensely. And I'm feeling a little bit like our wings are getting clipped on a daily basis, sometimes hourly basis, and it's quite frustrating.
Okay, if I
In
can.
Madison, the green
Yes.
markers you have on the map, it says vendor activity. What other vendors? So food trucks, and what other thoughts did you have?
So last year, we just opened it up to vendors. I know that there was some concern in just bringing in vendors in general, because it could be competition. Vendors, a lot of the vendors we had were young vendors, young entrepreneurs, that could be considered, they might want a business at some point downtown, filling one of these storefronts.
Just
So-
selling
There's
jewelry,
one
that
selling
kind of
that was selling jewelry. There's others selling different types of like crystal type things.
There was that vintage clothing, too.
There was a vintage clothing vendor, which I don't think that anyone has vintage clothing other than Town Hall Antiques.
MJC maybe?
MJC might
yeah,
have.
Cottage does
Yeah.
too, yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
well,
If I can.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Daniel.
Yeah, go
No,
ahead,
that
John.
was it. Answered my question. Thank you.
First of all, Elizabeth, thank you. You kind of always answer my questions before I get to ask them.
Well, that's what I get paid the big bucks for.
That's why you're there. Here's a couple questions, though, whether it's Elizabeth or Madison. You talked about try this, history, let's see what happens. We tried it last year. How many, I'm going to put this in two buckets. Food vendors did we have last year?
so we had one actual truck that arrived.
We had one.
That
Okay.
was a like soul food truck.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Maybe not the best target market for here.
okay. So
We did have other tent food vendors. Savvy Sliders had come out. I know Old Fashioned Concessions, who was on deck for Winterfest this year, she had come out. I believe that there was another one. Walt's Hot Dogs, the hot dog guy on the corner selling hot dogs with hot dog hat. He was out. So we did have different types of food vendors last year.
The coffee truck, or the coffee van was there, too. Wasn't it? Or 5
That-
Degrees North?
They were at Arbor Day.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, so I just picked up, based on, and I know we're using this term food truck, I'm going to use the term food vendor.
Okay.
4 last year, correct? So that began our history. I don't want to say something you didn't say. 4 total food vendors last year.
And we had them at Arbor Day
Yeah,
as
we
well.
had some local vendors at Arbor Day as well.
Okay, but all right, we're talking about Vintage Fest right now, and
Yes.
I want to plant the seed because, like you said, Elizabeth, this is for us to talk about and look at, and, if we want to do, don't want to do. Last year, we had 4, so we want to try. We did try. Was that successful, those 4? You would say those, okay.
I think they had a reasonable turnout.
Okay.
I know that there was some issues with some of the planning in the park.
Okay.
So there wasn't good signage to direct back there.
So it could have been better, but it was your first
Yeah.
time. You did a fantastic event. We learned at that point, specifically food vendors. We had 4, and it was a success. And if I'm not mistaken, they were all in one location.
Yes.
Correct, all around the park. How many food vendors are you proposing, would you like to propose for this year?
I would like the
And
flexibility.
if it's not a fair question, it's too soon, that's fine, I get it. Thank you for working so far ahead on this, I appreciate it.
I think it's good for discussion.
Okay.
I would like to have a couple more at least. I don't think I can give you a fair number right now because I don't know.
That's
It's
fine.
all dependent on if an amount is interested, if it's what we're looking for, you know? So I don't think I can give you a direct
That's
answer.
fine. That's fine. I don't want to belabor it. I just want to clarify what did happen last year, and I just want to see what we're working on going forward. So it can change. We used 4, a couple more, 6, maybe it goes to 8, maybe. And then the other big change is, as you pointed out already, moving them from where they were to spread out so we can
I would
access
I would
south
like
side.
to spread them out
Okay.
so it's
What ab-
visible on Main Street. So
What about, and I'm sorry, I feel like you're on trial or something. I just want these facts because this is why we wanted to work so far ahead. We might as well discuss it. How many vendors, not food vendors, vendors are you thinking? Or did we have last year?
vendors that we had last year.
You
I
said
think
we
we
had-
had close to, I'm going to go on the low side.
Okay.
Just so I can give a low amount and then we can get higher. I want to say we had at least 10
Okay.
just separate vendors. This did not include vendors that businesses had invited to be in front of their business because that was an option as well. One of our original intentions last year was like, hey, why don't we do like sidewalk sales or something? Or if a business wanted to have like a little business in front, like if you're a service business and you wanted like keychains, you could do that. Kind of like Peach Festival, you have the space in front of you. We use the same paperwork, just applied for Vintage Fest.
Okay, wonderful. All great information. Thank you. This is for the board's benefit. This can change. It's a draft, just for discussion. 4 to 8 possible food vendors, not in one location. 10, 12 merchandise vendors, for lack of a better term. Again, I'm assuming not in one location based on your map. And that's what you are kind of working on. You're going to do some homework regarding food vendors, costs, how much should they be, and in that research, and I'll do some myself. I'm not putting this all on you. I'm just telling you, I guess, what I'm going to do. And you know, if you want to join me in that, so we have numbers to comparison. How many of these other events in other areas, do they have it in one location versus spread out? And how many total food vendors do they have for a given,
Yes.
for a given event, you know, based on their activity? So, and that way, over the next month, I think when we come back next time, we've got real good educated numbers and data, and we can better give our opinions.
For your knowledge,
Can
I did start reaching
Can I make
out.
a comment, please?
I'm sorry.
May I make a comment, please, on the same topic?
She had a question.
Yes.
So,
I'm sorry, Madison, did you have a question?
I just wanted to point out that I have started researching. Last year, we went to a Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities Conference, and I attended one called Foodies Welcome. I contacted the main workshop leader, and I was like, hey, I would like clarity on how you conduct business with food trucks and vendors in general in a downtown area. So she had sent me her entire presentation. I would have provided it to you guys, but it was kind of short notice. And within this presentation, there's different pluses and minuses and how different communities handled it, as well as some different example paperwork. A lot of this example paperwork that I was provided was for like, you know, during the summer, like if vendors just show up type of thing. So that I think would apply more towards the village. But she's given me a good launching pad for research and different connections, like Traverse City.
And I'm sorry, included in that actually will need to be the question of time frame. How soon, in order to get proper permitting from the village, are we going to have this board's approval for it. So let's make sure we don't run into a last-minute rush.
So how about I speak to that?
Okay, can I talk for a minute?
Yeah,
please?
let's
Okay,
give Marty the
first
floor
of
here.
all, you know what, I was speaking for 12 out of the 15 restaurants regarding the food trucks. So for you guys to take this and blame it on solely me is wrong, all right? Second of all, when you guys presented the food vendors for Winterfest, you had gone before the trustees, Elizabeth, and were told that no permits were pulled, they were unaware of it. It's not that we canceled it, you didn't follow the proper procedure, am I correct?
No, you're not
No,
correct.
we did.
Okay.
We did follow the
All
proper
right.
procedure. We
But
went,
they
well,
were
hold
not
on a second.
aware
You
of
asked
it.
me the question, so
Right,
let me
But
finish.
they were not aware of it,
Who was not aware?
the trustees.
The office of
village.
the village office, we followed the procedure. I followed
Okay.
the procedure with the clerk as far
Were
as
you
what's been
guys
done. What I'd
aware
like to
of it?
know is, are you all aware that when all of the food trucks and vendors and all of this for Peach Festival, any other event, if you ask the village, have they pulled permits for every single thing ever done? What I'm saying, Marty, is that we followed procedure. We have email trails. We had so many different committees.
Hold on.
It's not even funny.
Elizabeth, there are Peach Fest is an exempt festival
But
for the village that doesn't
Mayfest
require
is not.
permits.
Mayfest is not.
We don't put on Mayfest. Permits are required for food trucks. I don't want to, let's.
We followed the
Our-
procedure we were told
our-
was the procedure.
Our board, in a special meeting, decided, I don't know what the vote was or how it went down exactly, I don't have that information in front of me. We did opt to cancel the food trucks for that event, just so.
And I had just so
We're
you know,
all-
I had two restaurants say we did not agree to have our name put on that
I
letter.
have 12 out of the 15 that actually signed it.
Well, then I guess we have a little bit of a.
We do, I
Okay,
have their
so-
signatures,
so-
but my thing is this. If you remember correctly, we were not against the food trucks. We were against you lining them up on Main Street.
They were never
The
scheduled to be
map
on
showed
Main
it,
Street.
that you had them lined up
Guys,
on
we
Main Street.
can't go back and this,
So-
there was a vote to approve a compromise. That vote failed, and then the vote went to cancel them altogether, and that's what was voted on by this board. I don't think we need to rehash what happened in the past. We're talking about the future. Let's stick to that. If there are concerns about the food trucks specifically, Madison, I think, is giving us a fair option for how that will be addressed, because we don't have anything defined. We don't have anything that says for this board, this is allowed, this is not. So let's tighten that up a little bit, so this board does have a chance to review this once, so that those policies are put in place, and we don't have to have this debate every time there's an event that comes up.
Right,
Would
and
it
but I just want to say this, finish my sentence is, we were not against them. We had asked you, could you please take them off of Main Street, split them up, put some at the park, put some behind the diner. I don't care.
But you
I
guys
just
voted that
thought-
down.
Because you didn't want to do that. We just said, group them
No,
together.
it was,
No,
it was,
no,
John,
ma'am.
John Rose offered a compromise
Yeah.
to put them all in one area that was presented to this board.
And you all voted that down.
Not all.
No, correct. It was,
The
it was a,
majority
it
of
The
was a,
majority of the board
it was a
voted it
failed
down, so
vote,
it didn't,
right.
it didn't,
Would it be fair, Madison, to say that by May 1st meeting, you would be able to present, and then based on what you present as far as pricing, location, types, the board would then be able to create a policy, a food truck policy
I
at
think
that
that's what,
time?
I think that's what we're asking for. So there's no
And can I
gray
add
area.
something to this? Because I went and talked to Northville DDA, and they said there's a very specific formula that it's one food truck per 3,000 people causes more traffic to drive into a town and go visit town, whatever. If you have more than one per 3,000, you starve your own restaurants. But other vendors, unlimited, however, they always do different categories. So if someone has a high-end jewelry store, they only do like a very value-oriented jewelry truck, so that they're never competing head-to-head with the people that are in their CBD.
So maybe
which-
Madison, you might
which
want
I-
to reach out to Northville and
Yeah.
ask them what their protocol is, and maybe that'll help.
Yeah, because they have
direct us.
6,000 residents, and they only had 4 food trucks ever. And then they strategically locate them with a very specific pattern to it. And then they have lots of other vendors and other, jewelry and other items like that.
You know what, I never once said, I don't want food trucks. I just didn't think it was fair to put them out on Van Dyke, out on Main Street.
Well, once we figure our
front of
policy, then we've got
other
one that can
businesses.
roll out every event.
So what we need right now,
So-
you're asking for us to approve this map to take to village council to request at their April 18th meeting? Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes,
Okay.
because this is the main thing that'll need to be approved by village council with different road closures, what DPW needs to know for like where the barricades need to go. This is for everyone knows what's going on.
But are we
since this is a
approving
main
this with
county
these
road.
items on here?
Hmm?
I mean, are
Well,
we
that's
approving
the
this with the food trucks before we have a policy?
Well, I think it's saying may include but not limited to, so it's more just so the village can do.
Can we-
But we need this to be followed up on
In May.
in May.
Yes.
So
Can't
if-
we approve this at our May meeting then? Once we have
So-
a policy?
When does the, I mean.
Okay, so if I can speak to this as the executive director of this body. We have, for my enthusiasm, and then it was inherited by Madison over here, to create events quickly. We did them quickly. However, that's not sustainable, right? I recognize that. I only have 24. I recognized in figuring out all of my account, I've been doing the job of 3 people, basically. So the problem, what entails is we're getting a better system to get these events planned. You know, Kathy Oswald owns MJC Marketplace, just did a phenomenal job refinishing the front of her office, or her buildings, and along with Karen, who owns the other one. And so she's helping us with some of this that I didn't have the experience in this. I'll be the first to admit when I don't know how to do something. You can probably ask anybody. If I don't know how to do something, yeah, I'll just tell you. But what we're learning is we need proper time. And because the village council meeting, and I'm looking at my phone because I'm not looking at text messages, I'm looking at my calendar. The village council next meeting is the 17th, correct, Megan?
Right.
Okay, so if we waited until the following month to get approval by the village, that's less than 2 months before the actual event.
Sure.
Which, from a planning perspective and trying to get promotion and
Right.
all of this stuff, so to get the approval, and so for village council to approve, they don't need to approve, and unless our president tells us otherwise right here, they don't have to approve all of these other things. It's just the road closures, the barricades, you know, the use of the park, that type, very specific things. While I appreciate the enthusiasm and the energy of this board and the new board members, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And, you know, either I'm the executive director or you guys need a secretary, because you all are doing the work of an executive director. With getting into the minutia is what I
Well,
mean.
It is the minutia, but we knew this was an issue.
Sure, of
And
course,
that-
of
and
course.
we
I mean some
talked
of the
about
other
that in
things. I'm talking
January.
about some of the other
Well, Okay, but I think
items.
it does need to be addressed.
For sure.
And I would be comfortable making a motion to approve the event permit request to send to village council for approval at their April 18th meeting, pending, what's the word I'm looking for here? I'm drawing a blank. With the caveat that this board hasn't, can review.
Final
the-
details to be reviewed? Could you say it like that?
Yeah,
Okay.
that way they can get closed, but I mean, we
right.
have the ability to fine tune the specifics of
Sure.
what's being requested, because it does say may include but not limited to. It doesn't mean they have to be there, but I'd be more comfortable if we had a policy in place considering the issue that it's become.
That makes sense, sure. Can you form that a little, because I don't
Yeah,
have a
I'm
recommended
trying to think
motion. All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the event permit request to send to village council for their meeting for the April 18th, 2023 meeting for Vintage Fest, Saturday, July 15th, 2023. Final approval of vendors by this board.
Final vendor approval to be determined in May meeting? Is that okay?
Yes, that, We're just talking about, yeah, we're not finalizing any of the specifics.
And just to clarify, the meeting is the 17th. We've said 17 and 18, 17.
Oh, sorry.
It's the 17th.
17th, okay, thank you. It's not ju, well, he's got the motion, so who's the second?
I'll second it.
Is that Greg or? who?
Either one, I don't care.
Okay, Tar, okay.
All right, so.
Just give me 1 second,
Yeah.
please.
Zach, while she's doing that, can we consider tabling this summer concert series to the next meeting, and out of respect for our guests here? I'm asking Zach if he can consider tabling the while Elizabeth works here, the summer concert series, out of respect for our guests, to try to move the agenda along, and also our people-driven credit union friend that's here that would like to make a presentation has been very, very patiently waiting.
If it can wait, I don't know how.
If we can do it in 5 minutes, I would prefer to keep it on there because we have people that need to be contacted.
Okay.
We can be incredibly brief.
Okay, so we have a motion by Hayes, second by, was it Tar?
Tar.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, next item under unfinished business, we have summer concert series permit process and budget. This is something we've already, the event itself, we've already approved as a board. Is there anything in the packet?
Yeah, it's the
There's
page just before.
A single page.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I grouped it all together.
Can you do
So,
that?
yes. I know something that's been requested is the cost estimates. I have that up top for $3,000. That's an estimate of more than what we're doing for Springfest. There's a lot of musicians that are coming in, bringing in different types of musicians. We want to honor their performance. We want to honor their work. A lot of musicians make a living off of these performances. So we have different family-friendly ones, easy listening, variety of styles, types of groups, rock and roll, jazz, professionals, students. We want to get each little chunk, each little sub-market. I have amenities, may include but not limited to. I threw external vendors on there. Just wait.
When's the concert series start?
July 12th.
So we'll have enough time at May's meeting to have our policy in place before.
Yeah, so we can
So
look
we are-
towards that.
Yeah.
So, but for your knowledge, this would be a smaller, definitely, than like the Vintage Fest extravaganza. I just wanted to talk about the option, if someone has like bubbles and like bubble wands, that might be cool, that type of thing. So that's kind of the direction that I'm thinking. Bubble wands are fun, right?
Yeah, I can
As
pick
long
them
as
up
it
at
doesn't
Vera's.
compete with
Oh, well.
Carl.
Yeah, well, yeah, you. If you wanted to have someone out, I'm sorry.
And the 3,000 includes like marketing, things
Yes.
like this the brochures and that kind of stuff.
Marketing would include, that would include marketing and musicians.
Cool.
And
So-
that covers the entire series, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is it, 8 weeks?
It's 8 weeks. So starting July 12th through August 30th, it would be Wednesdays. We thought Wednesdays would be best, so it didn't conflict with like bike night and Jeep night, because I don't think any of you want to be listening to smooth jazz and then have a Harley go vroom past you. So 5 minutes, is that
Yep.
a little update, what you guys
You're
want?
only at 2:08, that's not bad.
Do you need a motion?
Yep.
Cool.
So the thought behind this really is being a village resident for 15, 16 years now, I missed having the concerts in the park. And there's been a lot of people saying it would be nice to have those weekly concerts in the park. So, and then having having the new stage, we've got all the electricals all set up around there. It's a really nice ambiance to bring that back into the village. And we have a lot of musicians that are excited to participate. So a few of them are donating their time for that. And people like to, we hope to encourage our businesses, our restaurants specifically, have some grab-and-go stuff, have some quick things. We're trying to get, but we can't make people do stuff, right? We can't make them create grab-and-go. We can't make them do, fast things at lunchtime or whatever, but we're hoping that perhaps with some better communication, we can get there, so.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve this 8-week
I'll second it.
concert
Well,
series for $3,000.
hold on, I need the actual motion. Could you
Go
say
ahead,
that,
Marty, finish that thought.
Andrea, can you just give me a second to get the sheet out, please? I need a minute taker. This is a lot of work. Okay, go ahead, Andrea.
It was Danielle.
Oh, Danielle, I'm sorry.
Do you have a question, or no? Do you want you to clarify your motion first? Is that what you're asking?
That's what I'm asking. Yeah, she didn't get a chance to finish the motion, yeah.
I was just making a motion to approve the cost of $3,000 for the 8-week summer concert series.
I'll second it.
Okay.
We have a.
If I could just-
Yeah, go ahead.
To this, we have, Catherine, the clerk, and I have discussed the permits and the saving of the dates for the park. So we have penciled them in pending that it's ready. You guys have those dates. We're also bringing to the council this month to update that policy for the pricing of the rental, and we are going to be asking that certain local charities or our committees will be waived in that, and will list, just like we do in the other the ordinance with waiving Peach Fest permits at times, that we would waive for DDA or say the Starkweather or whoever. So just so you know that is, your dates are penciled in, and we'll be discussing that.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so I'm going to ask to do a roll since we're spending money.
Sure. Give me 1 second. Okay, there we go. All right, Tar?
Yes.
St. Laurent?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
Hutnick?
Yes.
McLeod?
Yes.
Brandt?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Okay.
What
Thank
about
you.
me? I don't get a say?
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed you.
joking.
Yes, Hayes.
Yes.
Okay. Yay.
All right, thank you. Now on to new business.
Zach, any chance we can shovel that deck for our friend Steve from the credit union?
I mean, we've already approved, I don't think we can change the agenda once it's been approved. I don't,
know,
if
maybe-
anybody can comment who knows more than I do.
Christine?
Keep going, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, so up under A, we have Employment Committee Report and Recommendation. I do want to note, Elizabeth, you have the option for this to go into closed session before we start.
I'm good with it being open.
Okay. Deborah, I think you have the who's got the packets?
Andrea.
So, well, all I have to turn over to John is the employee files, because he's the secretary, correct? And then you have the documentation, I believe, Deborah, the comments.
Do you have the reports? The packets I told you to hold until we get to that point?
Correct.
They're on the table now because
Okay.
Elizabeth has opted not to have it in closed session.
Can I clarify, since this was just given to me, what am I given?
Those are just the employee files that we reviewed.
As the secretary,
You're the holder as the secretary,
Well,
according to our
actually,
bylaws.
the village bookkeeper is the holder in files at the DDA office. So the
anything to do with,
no, including personnel files.
okay, that's not what the bylaws
Well,
said.
perhaps we need some.
Okay, we'll get some clarification
We'll
on
get
that.
clarification on that. But I have not seen things that are in these files at
I'm
all.
gonna-
Is there a packet for me?
So in the meantime, I have possession of this employee
Thanks.
file. Correct?
I'm asking if there's a packet for me. Does this include all the letters that were supposedly put into my personnel file?
Yes.
Is there a packet for me, or is this my packet?
That's the one I just gave you, right?
Is that,
No.
That's the one we passed on.
So
I'm
what was
sorry.
not asked of me is what
I
I've
guess I didn't
accomplished. So if
realize.
anybody's interested in that,
Well, I think we need to go through our
yeah,
presentation
let's,
first.
Okay.
so
So
we've
John
just.
doesn't
we-
have one.
All right.
You can
So
have mine.
just-
I have mine in front of me.
All right, so we have been given the employee committee report, and Andrea, do you want the floor at this time?
Yeah, so I mean, basically what we've done is we provided the board with the review that we had created. There was some board members, like Greg had said, he and another board member were not happy with the review. So we have provided the review, I believe, to Zach. And we're basically, after the meeting, again, Greg didn't stay for the remainder of the meeting, but we reviewed the comment sections of the reviews. We've reviewed the letters received, and we've made 2 recommendations based on that.
Can I step in? I also did not fill out the survey.
Yeah, there was 3, yeah, because as the advisor, you did not fill out a survey, so there's 3. So we reviewed the comments and the letters received. I don't know if you just want me to give the recommendations at this point, based on the comments?
I think so.
If you want me to read the, I mean,
Yeah.
okay, so.
I'm sorry, what are you reading right now?
Our recommendations.
And that is where?
I'm going to read them now.
No, I need to see those before you read them out loud.
Well, that's,
Yeah, no, where are they?
they're right here.
No, I don't have a copy.
That's not what I was told to provide.
No,
Why aren't they in this package?
Because
No,
I
I'm
wasn't
sorry.
told to provide them in a package.
I didn't, I mean, I was not asked, but I didn't think it would, do we have to have that? And if she's making a motion or making a
I should be seeing this. Okay, let me say this, as the employee who chose to not go into closed session.
Right.
Best practices are that when you have subcommittees that have just been formed, that you come back and say, these are the recommendations of what we should do, not hurry up and get them done in 3.5 weeks.
Well, but that's what they're presenting right now.
Right, in a rushed manner. And
It's
I
not a
will say
rushed
this,
manner.
no, I'm sorry, I'm the employee here and I'm going to
But
speak.
this is the committee's
Correct.
information.
And this is
our-
my reputation and my
But you chose to have it
livelihood.
in an open session.
Correct, I did.
Okay, so
This
you either
committee
allow it
was-
to happen or
This
you
committee
don't.
was formed on March 6th, of which time John Rose, owner of Main Street Coffee Shop, suggested an employment committee. I have in my notes.
We haven't even, we have
No,
not.
no, no, this is
Elizabeth,
important.
hold on.
This
There-
is important.
I know, and
because
it's also,
two letters
it's also
of
important that
damning
the-
material was entered with
this
prior.
board has not seen anything yet, Elizabeth. We don't, we
Oh,
just were
okay.
handed this. This is something that normally takes place in closed session. This,
She can opt to go into closed session at any time.
Yeah, if you'd like it
All
closed
right,
session, we can
bring
do
it, go
that.
ahead.
okay. What's that?
The issue is not whether you are in closed session or open session. The employee has indicated that she prefers an open session. The employee also has the right to see the recommendations by the subcommittee before they are announced.
No, they're not. Public comments over, and in any other employee evaluation, you do not present the employee the evaluation before you do it.
We're
We're sitting
all
down
just
with our
getting
employee.
it right now. This is, go ahead.
Okay, so do you want me to read the recommendations?
Please.
Okay. The committee recommends that in the next 30 days, Elizabeth is to submit in writing all passwords, logins, access codes, and provide extra set of keys to the board chair. In the next 30 days, the employee committee will produce the executive director's updated job description and work directives to be presented to her at the May 1st DDA meeting, to assure clear instruction and guidance for Elizabeth as to her duties and performance expectations. In light of the recent events and legal threats against the DDA board, we would like a budget not to exceed $2,000 for legal representation to the employee committee during this process. Recommend number 2, given the communications received, we've received many letters threatening legal action. Shall we say? I mean, Zach, it's up to you.
I am not going to say who, but I will, this entire board has received the documentation that Andrea is referring to, threatening legal action against every single member on this board, should we choose to proceed.
Doesn't that tell you something?
It tells me that we need to do our due diligence and make sure that this board's also protected. Okay, so we have a responsibility not just to our staff, but to the other volunteers on this board as well. It's an employee review that's being presented right now, and to be honest with you, I'm gonna need you to read the recommendation again, because
Okay.
I honestly don't even know what we're talking
Yeah,
about
and so
at this
is
point.
public comment is over, correct? The committee recommends in the next 30 days, Elizabeth is to submit in writing all logins, access codes, and provide an extra set of keys to the board chair to the office. In the next 30 days, the employee committee will produce the executive director's updated job description and work directives to be presented to her at the May 1st DDA meeting, to assure clear instruction and guidance for Elizabeth as to her duties and performance expectations. In light of the recent events and legal threats against the DDA board, we would like a budget not to exceed $2,000 for legal representation and oversight to the employee committee during this process. Recommendation number 2, given the communications received, Elizabeth will attend a business ethics course on an unpaid day of work. The course will be paid for. The course will be paid for by the course will be paid for by the DDA not to exceed $125. Course will be completed in the next 30 days with certificate of completion.
So, Andrea, I'm going to ask you, what is the thought behind the employment committee to recommend the business ethics course? Because I think that's, I mean, obviously based on the audience reaction and what
Due to the letters received, the comments made, you can read those. I don't know if you want to read them out loud. I would. It's public comments over.
You're not God. You're not
God.
God.
I never said I was God.
Come on,
but
guys.
Public comments
Come on,
over.
that's why stuff like this is normally in closed session. These are things for our board to discuss,
She has the right.
and she declined that right.
And we have the right to be respectful and listen at this point. I mean, honestly, we're all adults here.
Thank you. Okay, so you're referring specifically to complaint letters and employee file, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I have not had a chance to go over these, so I guess.
They were sent to the board about a week ago.
Zach, can I ask you a question? Are we on a time limit here?
We do not, per our bylaws.
No time limit? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so do I get to speak to these letters that have been submitted? Zach?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
so March 6th, let me get my calendar out. So March 6th is when the board meeting happened, and in my notes, because I was so flabbergasted by the amount of communications and hostile emails that I received from some new board members, I had to go back and go, okay, what is this subcommittee tasked with doing? And at minute 238 of the March 6th board meeting, there was talk about capturing an issue. Greg said something about, like, let's do a strike force, let's talk about this, let's work through this. John said, we owe her feedback, let's do a review. Deborah McLeod couldn't be here, and she said she was willing to be on said committee. And I said, John, why don't you be on it? You were the one who recruited me for this position multiple times. If you remember right, I didn't want the job. So at that time, you declined, you abstained from the committee, and there was no board direction at that time. March 6th. You look at these dates, there is a 4-page document that was supposedly submitted to the employment committee, dated February 10th, signed by Deborah McLeod, 3 weeks before she supposedly wanted to get on this employment committee. Then, the next letter I'm looking at is written by you, John, written on February 13th. I'm sorry, this looks a little premeditative to me, that you suggested we have an employment committee review on March 6th when you wrote a letter, and I tried contacting you numerous times because I knew you were upset about a couple things, and you did not return my phone calls, my emails, my text messages. In addition to this, this is huge. I have nothing to lose, and that's why I'm okay with this open session. In a letter, in an email, oh, this isn't the right one. Give me a second. Thank you all for being here. Really, I'm just blown away. All right, okay. Actually, I don't have anything to defend, but I will continue to deal with this retaliatory
Can I ask
stuff.
you a question,
No, you may
please?
not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
That's fine.
All right, I need some help here, guys. I don't know where we go from here.
Well, there's a
Well, give
recommendation.
me a second. I'm still.
What's that?
There's, I mean, how,
All right.
there's not-
Nope, I know where it's at. It's right here. Yeah, sure. Apparently, go ahead, Greg. He's got copies of the letter from Deborah and John as well, and apparently he has them if you all want them.
Don't we have them in our packet?
You have them in your packet.
We've got,
She's asked me to pass them out to the,
we've got them. They're here.
to the attendants.
No, if anybody in the public wants them. They are my records. They are my records.
Is it? All right.
No, this is important.
I understand that, but this is turning into a circus, and I don't
Of
ca-
which is not my making.
I'm not saying it is, but this is also a public meeting, and I'll.
Okay, I will
This
not
is-
say who the restaurant is, but a restaurant owner sent us, you and I, an email and specifically said Deborah McLeod was in the restaurant in February telling people that I was telling everyone around the community to not visit that establishment, Main Street Coffee Shop, and Four Corners Diner. That cannot be farther from the truth. My husband, David, I don't know where you are. He might be in the other room. There he is. He knows at 6:30 in the morning, I am on Instagram posting stuff for you guys. Do you want to know how many times I have?
What do you, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry, I missed.
We've
Do you
only
know how many?
included-
No, I am speaking
But
right now.
Elizabeth, you don't get to control this meeting right
Correct.
now. Okay?
Correct,
We
but this
have
is
a-
my reputation on the line.
I understand that,
So
but
what
we've
I'm,
only included things with a signed signature on here to say what this person said and that person said and
no,
that.
it's right here in email.
Okay, then you
right
either
here.
need to provide it, but you haven't provided
I
that to the
have,
board.
how would I know to provide that when I wasn't even aware that there
So
were
we have a
letters by board
recommendation.
members?
Zach, you need to.
This whole thing
decide
is
where we're gonna
tainted.
go
It
on
should be
this.
thrown out. You all have a tainted,
I have,
this
I,
is
well,
bizarre.
I'm
it's
gonna.
very transparent.
All right, let me save you all some trouble. Let me save you some trouble. You follow through with this, I'm done, I resign.
That's your
What-
choice. I mean,
for-
what are you supposed to do?
To carry through? So then are you guys gonna
To
fight
have
for
a
me
job
then on this one?
description?
Go to village council and tell them they can't do this?
To have a job description?
It's not that's not what you're
That's
asking for.
exactly
You're
what it
asking to tie
says.
my hands and you want a secretary.
Okay,
You don't
so-
want a director.
Okay. It's a job description is what's being requested.
Deborah, did you do that? Did you talk bad to her, about her and the youngers, to several people?
No, I did not.
Who said it
I
was
would.
youngers?
I did
I.
not.
For the record, she's denying it.
Okay, so part one of the recommendation is to provide login access codes, which you are already working on.
Correct. Yeah.
Which is part of our social media policy.
Yep.
Best practices, an updated job description, which,
That makes sense.
okay,
But who's doing it? Because, I'm
Well,
sorry.
we said the employee committee with oversight from the employment attorney.
The employee committee is tainted.
No,
There's
it
no
is
way
not.
you can't.
wait, okay,
Does the
hold
whole
on.
committee-
Hold on,
Three
hold on.
people are designing the committee, okay, or the job description. This is the board of the DDA. We would design a new job description with new board members. It'd be normal and reasonable. to
But
think-
everything
but we
we do
haven't-
comes with a recommendation. It's up to the board to vote on it, and we would have an employee attorney oversee it.
Is it possible,
Everybody should be
is it possible to
participating.
work on her job description as a board? Could we all do it
Because it's
together?
a safety thing, the same reason why Megan was required to turn it over when we got a director in, and she did it with no issue. It was the same thing. It's best practices, it's the safety of this board. She could get a better job offer tomorrow and be gone, and if we didn't have that immediately, we're putting the board at a disadvantage. I don't want to get into an engagement of back and forth, but we have to have certain practices in place.
You would submit on, like, taking the keys for the building on her exit interview? You would say,
We-
to hand over the credentials?
We have a social media policy that says that director and the chair has it. Kelly Stevens had it when she was the former chair. It's just,
He already
it's
has
policy
it.
that's
He
put in
already has
place.
it.
So I want to see how we can work through this and have, because I think you would agree, you need an updated job description. You've been asking for it. You've been asking
Updated
for more.
goals, not the job description itself, but yeah.
But doesn't that evolve with the position? When you walked into the position, things were
Sure,
completely
that's
different.
fair.
You took
Sure.
it from 0 to 60. How do you go from 60 to 100? We have to
Sure.
put things in perspective here. Because I don't think we can sit back and just say, no oversight ever. We've had plenty of conversations, Elizabeth.
Agreed.
I'm not disagreeing with any of the progress you've made or the accomplishments you've done here on this board, but we do have to just have better practices in place, because in light of all the stuff that's been going on in the last 2 weeks,
Yeah.
I'm turning to our bylaws, and guess what? I'm looking at them and I'm saying, this is fine when it's business as usual, when it's just a normal status quo, and then something like this happens, and we're having to worry about how long we're conducting public forum, and, you know, what do you have to do to schedule a special meeting, and all these other things, and we're not protected as a board. So whether it's this group here, you in that position, expanding, hiring support staff, all those things, when they happen, we have to do things that are best practices, and that's our job right now, is to get it together, because obviously there's some issues here.
Agreed. So my question is this.
Yes.
I'm concerned about the rush to get all of this stuff done. I'm concerned that since November 21st, I have been under nothing but turmoil and harassment, retaliation it blows my mind how much. There is so much work, Zach, and to the rest of this board and the new ones who have not, some of you who said, I don't need to look at 18 months of director's reports, I just need to know what happened in the last 30 days. No, you don't. You need to know what I've done to flip this thing around. I literally had a flip phone when I walked in. A flip phone. A flip phone.
I have been a big bragger about all the things you accomplished to your face and to people in the community. Have I not? I mean, honestly, I have.
So to that, what I want to say is the board had a workshop and orientation with talking about best practices, policies, procedures, following the Open Meetings Act, all of this stuff, and it was like none of that even happened. My concern is there is a rush by certain board members to hurry up and get all these things in place. It's like having a surgeon go out and do open heart surgery when they haven't even worked on a cadaver yet.
Yeah, but the timeline when we did it was because we're coming up on our budget talks for the next year, and that's when we have to review employee salary, we have to review bricks and mortar projects. These are all things
Sure.
that we have to know moving forward, and the goal of this, in my mind, from the get-go, was to provide you with better direction from the board, better guidance, so that you could do your job as best as you could. Not saying that you're coming up short on anything. There are bigger things out there, because we have no goals right now. We have nothing in
Correct.
place, aside from the few conversations about public art and bricks and mortar projects with a few dumpster corrals sprinkled in. We gotta expand on this, and as more takes place, it can get out of hand really quick. I think that's why we're at where we are right now, is because you did move so fast. Before we could even put some of those things in place, you were already taking off, and now you throw in a new board, it changes things, and we're not.
And if I could,
If I may, I believe Elizabeth would be amenable to, if the board collectively worked on job description and goals and such, and it would be reasonable and customary then for us to bring those back there and say, this is now what we would like you to do going forward,
And
rather
I think
than.
that's what we're doing with
I
the
think-
committee.
I would
May
suggest that our
may I
pillars
finish?
do that.
May I finish?
Well, I'm
And then
saying
you can talk
along
when I'm
with
done.
you.
You want to, okay, go ahead and finish, I'll finish then.
I'm saying along with what you're saying, our pillars, I think, could work on each of those areas, and a chair from that pillar could bring back what you're saying.
I think as long as collectively, clearly Elizabeth is concerned that there are certain people here that may stack the deck. So I think if we can make her comfortable, letting her know that we will all collectively work on this and bring it back to her with some ideas, goals, direction, and sort of redirect the next 3 or 4 years, whatever it may be, that would be normal. But I think she needs to have assurance that it's not going to be somebody who's maybe already written a scathing letter about her and then ends up doing something, or somebody who has not been actively involved in the meetings and participating, and then all of a sudden they roll in. there's been a lot of issues that she has gone through the last couple of months. And everything was moving along for a year plus, like a freight train. And we need to give her some assurance, and I'm not speaking for her, but I would hope she would be amenable to that if we would recreate the goals, a job description, kind of round it back out, and then let her get her work done so we can move on to other things. So
Well, I would like to say to Elizabeth, I don't know if you've read it, but I would encourage you to read my comments in your review. Because I think you might even be surprised. I had a lot of positive things to say, and I don't think that you've even given me the chance to get to know me or to have
I tried
any
to have a
feed-
separate meeting with you and Zach on 3 occasions, and you refused to meet with us
That's
because
not-
of the
no,
disrespect
that's
you
not
have shown
true.
me.
That,
Zach?
yep, Andrea did give us a time. You agreed to it. It was my son's birthday, and I said I couldn't attend.
And to
That was
rearrange the
last-
other time, yeah, to do it another time. No,
Correct.
that was not,
But that's-
that wasn't Andrea, that was
Right,
Deborah.
no, right, exactly.
Oh, you're
I
right, it
did-
was, you're right.
I
You're-
did, so I'm
stand
just saying, when
corrected.
you make comments like I refuse to,
password and job
can I
descriptions,
finish,
what are you-
Greg?
Yeah, go- yeah,
When you
go on,
make
I'm
comments
sorry.
like I refuse to, that's not true. I said, and I gave him several dates that I was available to meet. When you make these blanket statements that I refused, that's not true, number one. Number two,
I stand corrected.
thank you. And I have offered to. I also said that these are recommendations, and the reason that we're asking for legal representation is for the board's protection, because of the letter that we received today, and also for your protection, so that when we create directives, when we create a job description, it's fair for everybody. We have a legal attorney, a law attorney, employment attorney who's saying, that's appropriate, nope, that's not appropriate, and we're creating a cohesive document that works for everybody. Where this whole don't fire her came in, that's a rumor that's out there. That was not the recommendation provided. We're asking for a job description that makes sense for where the DDA is at in 2023. We are asking for directives, because there are changes. We didn't have pillars before. We have pillars now. We're asking for those sorts of things to move this board forward. You know, you say don't clip our wings, but I also don't think it's fair that the board has to have zero say in where the DDA direction is either. There needs to be a relationship. You having a relationship with us and us having a relationship with you. And by creating these documents, it gives us all a launching point for that. And if we were to have this, it would be a recommendation with legal input, so we're all covered, and then we bring it back to the board and we say, do we vote on it? Yes, no, nope, it's no motion for this? Okay, we go back and we reevaluate.
I
To
think,
answer
I
your
think,
question, Andrea, where this came from, is this sparking of a Saturday 10 a.m. meeting. That's what stirred this up.
But where did the meeting say termination?
But why would, what did it imply? It was very scary to a lot of people, including her, on the download to do that, to rush that.
It wasn't on the
Can I-
download.
Can I answer to that,
It wasn't on the
please?
download.
Okay.
I would like to answer to
Thank
that.
you.
We felt that it was unkind to wait because we felt that she was convinced she was going to be let go, and I did not, and I think everybody on the board felt the same, is if we could bring it to a culmination so that it would be over with and you'd find out that we don't want to fire you. We want to have a job description and give you a better opportunity to succeed than the previous job description and the previous board where Greg said that everything was always changing. So how do you know what it is you're supposed to be working on because it was always changing? That they had changed it from what you originally had been given in goals. And it just didn't seem fair to keep dragging it out day after day after day when we knew what we were going to recommend and it wasn't
And
what you were
having
thinking.
this horse and pony show
I would
here
never
today,
want to do that to a
in the middle
person.
of a full agenda.
Yeah.
Obviously didn't work out that way.
Wow,
So here
so
we are.
unkind is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Unkind is changing the locks to village offices and then
Wait,
refusing
what
to
does that
give.
have to do with
That's
Because
not
she's
the
on
sport.
this board. It has
No, it
everything
has
to do with
nothing to do
it.
with
No,
the
it does,
employee committee.
because I have not been able to do my job effectively, although I'm still doing an amazing
Well,
job.
but Elizabeth, what
No,
does that have to do with
Andrea, I'm
Saturday's
speaking.
meeting?
I'm speaking for a minute, please.
You're always speaking, Elizabeth. What does that have to do with Saturday's meeting?
All right.
I cannot do my job.
So is it possible for us to get together as a board?
We have a recommendation.
and
We need
go-
to decide if
yeah.
we're adopting the recommendation or not.
No?
Okay.
Hold on one second, sir. I'd like, go ahead.
Agenda together.
Elizabeth feels that there's negative things happening from certain board members.
Correct.
However, we had someone speak at this meeting tonight that said the president of the village asked her if she would be the director of the DDA.
In Emily City, not of Romeo.
Not of Romeo.
She said in Emily City.
Wait, let me finish. I heard it. I think all these people heard it, but let me finish. Then, all of a sudden, the two new board members of the DDA form a committee. Wait a minute, you know and I know, to get rid of the DDA director. Now you're changing your stripes. Let's be transparent.
Yes, let's be transparent. She said the DDA director of Emily City. She did not say the DDA director of Romeo. And hold on, Megan, 1 second, then I'll let you speak. The committee was not formed by two people. The committee was formed by this board, voted and approved. So I don't want it to sound as though two people created a rogue committee that was not approved by this board. We can't speak in these half-truths and just make things up as we go along. Like, I'm so sick of this.
Well, it sounds like to me that right now, this board has enough people that would vote her in now. This is open session. The committee is irrelevant at this point. This group, this board has heard everything about the comment. It sounds to me like this board sitting would vote her to continue.
That's what we're trying to do.
That's where we are.
That's what we're trying to do.
Continue or to be fine?
Yeah, it is.
Somebody make a motion.
That's what we're trying to do. So someone needs to make a motion on the recommendation.
Excuse me, I'd like the floor first, if I may.
Go ahead, John.
Been mentioned a couple times tonight, a few times tonight. So I waited to make sure that Elizabeth commented any way she could and wanted to on my letter. Absolutely, please do continue that. And I'm going to read this letter, by the way. I want to, first of all, one of the first things mentioned as far as my name this evening, feels like this morning, the formation of this subcommittee. This began because of the time frame since Elizabeth was hired and today. She was overdue, as was stated in some previous comments as far as the bylaws, for any kind of a review, any kind of an evaluation, any kind of a job description review, whatever you would like to call it. I was on the previous employment committee, the original employment committee from when Elizabeth was hired, so I wanted to make sure that point was clear, and that is when I let this board know, hey, we need a, whatever we want to call it, employment committee, and a review is certainly, so that Elizabeth knows what she's doing and how she's been doing, and at least how we feel about it. I did not want to be on that committee, as was also mentioned tonight. That yes, that was my choice. I just felt, I had gone through what I had gone through the first round, and I wanted to see where we went from there. So I did decline from being on that committee. That was the formation of the committee. There was really, and I'm speaking for myself here, no forethought, no underground reasoning, just wanted to be out of fairness and for information for Elizabeth and for this board having an executive director, where that started. Getting to this letter. In my past history, I've been in the business field, every employee has an employee file. Employee files are again, everybody, whether it's positives, negatives, it's a part of the process of doing business, at least in my history. So what I wanted to do back when, and I'll tell you the date on my letter was February 13th, was just to begin that process, because I found out I wasn't aware of an employee file. Maybe there was one. My understanding was there was not. for everybody's benefit, long-term, whether it's for immediate, future, what have you, I wanted to make sure there was an employee file. I had an incident that happened, and I was kind of hoping for, that Elizabeth would want closed sessions, because I'd prefer this to be between board and Elizabeth. It's open, that's fine. I have no problem reading this letter. I didn't want to, because I thought maybe we could hash this out.
Are all the rest of the
and move
letters
on.
going to be read too?
I have no idea. I can't speak to that. I can only speak to myself.
Your letter is full of lies, John.
Well, then that's why I would like to hear from you.
Go ahead, read it.
I'd like you to know, first of all, what led up to this incident was, lo and behold, it was after what was our food truck? Vintage?
Winterfest.
Winterfest, and the board's action regarding food trucks specifically. The meeting after our board meeting, and the board decided to, what ended up being canceling food trucks, there was was called a volunteer committee, volunteer event
Yeah.
committee.
Event committee.
My thought process there was to appear at that committee, because I know that there was frustration, and I kind of understood both sides. I did try to work to kind of mend both sides and get through it. Turns out it did not materialize. So I wanted to show up at this committee, as I do now and then, if I can help in any way, but specifically that one meeting, because I knew it was a hot issue. Unfortunately, and I know that there's a handful of people that were in the room at that time, what led to my thought that we need to help Elizabeth here a little bit regarding how the board is expecting her to do her job. And I ended the letter with the meaning of the letter. So I'll read this. It's dated February 13th, 2023. This was Dear DDA Board Chairman, which, again, would be, in my field, common procedure for employee submissions, employee file submissions. Believe it or not, I have been one of Elizabeth's biggest advocates over the last year. Unfortunately, this has ended. This letter is to communicate to the board the unprofessionalism shown by Elizabeth Miller at the January 26th event committee meeting. Elizabeth made it loud and clear in front of residents how the decision to not allow food trucks at Winterfest 2023 was going to cause residents to rebel against my business. I was puzzled. This was puzzling to me. Sorry, I won't interject statements. I'm quoting. She followed by looking at me and saying that I was hurting the business called Old World Nouveau by not allowing her by not allowing her plan to take place. This was astonishing to me. So I said I won't interject. However, what was most disturbing was when she turned to a village employee and asked if she wanted to talk to the village clerk about getting permits for trucks to be put on private property. Then, hearing that, she approached at least 3 individuals, sorry, this would have been on a different day, regarding housing food trucks on their property. I realized that there was zero respect for this board and who she works for. I submit this letter requesting to be added to her personnel file and asking for a review of Elizabeth's job description. John Rose. Again, wanting to try to better a job description, better how does this work, better communication, I wanted to point out, you took board action and discussed, don't know if you actually did, but you discussed, you had motive to go and behind the board's back to move something forward that the board had already voted on. And if you wanted to do that, we need to have a board discussion to do that. Reasons, let's readdress this. I know how you voted, can we please talk? That was very upsetting to me, and those are the words, that is my letter, and that was the intention of my letter. So, again, because I was been mentioned and I've been called out, and yes, there's a letter, and we can discuss the dates and how it transpired. I wanted to read that, but I'd like to hear from Elizabeth next.
During that same week, John, the whole board was flipped upside down because of the village president's appointments, which is her right to do so. I'm giving you context because of how much stress.
That's fine,
and-
I understand.
I'm
but
sorry, did you want my comments?
No, I do want your comments, and
Okay,
I
'cause
just
it
interrupted you,
relates.
but it always comes back to the village president. I'm talking about the letter that
Because
I
it
submitted.
relates to the
that
timeline that
you
you're
and I
referring
had a
to.
discussion with at an open meeting in front of residents, in front of other members, and I think that's very important. I understand other things, I'm not talking about the other things, I'm talking about my letter that I
But it
submitted.
relates.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
That was a Thursday. We were in the office. 2 days prior to that, I was refused use of copy paper at Village Hall, even though our lease, it's included in our lease. And I was told by Megan Poznansky, put the paper back, that's not your paper. And I said, we have combination paper, we've been doing this, let me give you historical, I need you to put the paper back. I said, how about this, Megan? The whole office was there. How about this? How about I go upstairs? There's a special, the new board was appointed on Monday, the 23rd. By Tuesday morning at 9 a.m.-ish, I was told 3 people had already come in and been sworn in on the new board. By, I think sometime that afternoon, I was informed that there was a special meeting called by the new board, and I had to hurry up and put a packet together. But all the paper was missing from the printer upstairs because the village office from downstairs had taken all the paper. I had no paper, and Deborah, you know this because I was frantic trying to figure out what to do.
I remember you talking about it.
At the same time, my incredibly hardworking, dedicated husband was kicked off the tree board for no reason. At the same time as that, I'm trying to come up with paper. I'm trying to get my job done. I have a festival that's taking place not 10 days later that brought most of you money into your pocket. And how many food trucks showed up, John? None. Not one food truck. Joan Den, if she's still here. What did you say? And this does relate. You called me and you asked me what?
I asked you if you could put 3, I said, I'm fine with putting 2 or 3 food trucks on my property.
And I said, I have no control over that. You have to call the village office.
Yeah.
Someone who has property called me and asked, and I said, you're going to have to check with it. Well, don't you have the paperwork? Yep, I do. And they asked for it, so I provided it to them. How many food trucks showed up? These 4 pages, 2.5 pages of the stuff I've gone through since November 21st, the energy it takes to put on what Madison and I do, you need positive, creative, this energy, and when you're being constantly harassed, retaliated against, the barrage of emails that I have received in the last 10 weeks has been daunting. Do you know how many times my husband has asked me to quit? I'm not done.
Okay, I'm waiting.
People-driven credit union have been unbelievable to this community in giving that space. And I negotiated for you guys, for this village, a 5-year rent-free lease, including utilities. They allowed us to be in that space while it was being renovated. I have over 30 people and businesses and individuals who've donated their time, their energy, their money, their art for the walls in that space. And I have not had one thank you from some of you members. Megan, you're the leader of this village, and you have not once said, thank you for what you're doing. All you did was retaliate against me because I chose to, as a citizen, a taxpayer, a resident, and a legal voter of this country, to support your opponent. I met in your office the Friday after the whole debacle started with the key, and I begged you. I said, Megan, let's work together. I didn't, you know what, it's over, it's whatever. And you said, who sent you here? I have extended you so many olive branches, I'm onto my second tree.
Elizabeth? That is not accurate. I never, ever said that.
Which part? Which part?
To say who sent you here, that would never be something I said.
Who sent you here, Zach or Kelly? You said that. You specifically
did
pointed
not.
those. All right, well,
And
I have it all-
Elizabeth, I have thanked you. I've even thanked you publicly.
I don't need your
on
thanks.
social-
I don't ever
Well,
need
you
your
just
thanks.
said that I've never thanked you. I've publicly thanked you
While
on
you were
social
stabbing
media.
me in the back. While you were
Elizabeth,
stealing
I'm not going
things,
to
while you were
argue with
taking
you,
things out
but
of
if
the
you're going to
closet
throw
and
things
putting
at
them.
me, if you're going to throw things at me, I have a chance to speak to them, and I'm saying that's not true. I have thanked you. I have thanked the DDA. I've even encouraged and said what a great opportunity it was. I've said it at a board meeting. I've said it on social media.
Why was she kicked out of the village offices in the first place?
She was not kicked out of the village. If you recall,
we're,
this
we're not-
board
this-
ended the lease.
This is going absolutely nowhere. I don't think there's any motion that this board needs to vote on tonight. My ask would be to design an updated job description for Elizabeth that Elizabeth can be involved with the description of, so that she feels like she's being represented, because I think she has a good idea of what the tasks should include, but I also think it needs to include members of this board, so that there's something that this board as a whole can review and agree on moving forward.
So you are not accepting the recommendation? Because when we spoke.
I will not make, I'm not making a motion on
So
anything.
is there a motion to accept because there is an issue with the legal aspect.
Oh,
and
I
we've spoken
don't,
about
I don't
that.
disagree that we need some sort of HR, and as the chair and in our, I will reach out to the HR attorney
Yeah, so-
from McGraw-Morris.
So as the employee committee, we've made a recommendation. The board needs to decide if they're going to make a motion to accept it.
Right.
And so that's where we're at.
Yeah, exactly. And
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendations as stated.
okay, we have a motion by McLeod. Do we have a second?
Can you read that, what it is again?
Yeah. Committee recommends in the next 30 days, Elizabeth, is to submit in writing all passwords, logins, codes, provide an extra set of keys to the board chair to the office. In the next 30 days, the employee committee will produce an executive director's updated job description and work directives to be presented at the May 1st DDA meeting to assure clear instruction and guidance to Elizabeth as her duties and performance expectations. In light of the recent events of legal threats against the DDA board, we would like a budget not to exceed $2,000 for legal representation and oversight during this process. And then that would be presented as a recommendation of this is the, and then the board can vote and decide if they want to accept the job description.
Is this still with the caveat of a business ethics course be taken?
This is the first recommendation.
So there's
There's
that's
two
the first,
separate, yep.
you have the first motion, and McLeod, you made the motion to proceed with,
Recreating the job description.
can you specify who will be creating the job description?
Well, it would be the employee committee and the legal attorney, the employment attorney.
So, but we're not gonna include the director to help, form the,
I mean, this is the recommendation.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
this is what's on the board. I mean, it
Okay.
would come back to the board for vote.
so we have a motion by McLeod. Do we have a second? No second, motion fails.
If I may, to the point of the key, I am not, the building is not ours. I do not issue keys. That is, there's a lot of internal controls with people-driven credit unions, so that is not, I can't hand keys over to anybody. So that is, that if it had gone through.
Who currently has access to the building?
Myself, Madison, we have keys issued separately. Our electrician still has a key that's issued to him until he finishes 2 small things in there when the cabinets get installed next week, or this week. And then I have an extra one that I can use at my discretion.
So if that can be used at your discretion, you would be able to give access to the chair if it's at your discretion.
I would need to clear that
Okay.
with people-driven credit
Okay,
union, for sure.
I understand that.
I can speak on that if you would like to hear. Anybody that has a key pass to that building has to sign for it. So whoever that additional person would be, they would have to sign for it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we don't have any, does anybody want to make a different motion?
I'd like to make a motion, we table this. I'm sorry. I'd like to make a motion, we table the employee committee report and recommendation and give this some more thought privately and come back a little bit more prepared.
But
And
do you-
when there's maybe cooler heads, there's nothing that has to be done here today. She's got plenty of work to do. She's heading in the right direction. We're going to give her some adjustments along the way, but I think we need to agree on who's going to design that. And I guess I'll make a motion that we redesign Elizabeth's job description and the goals of this board representing the taxpayers of the DDA, and that we seek Elizabeth's input throughout it, and we then present it back to her. And if
But
it's
who is
something-
we?
Everybody collectively.
I don't think that's going to be productive, Greg.
Well, let me finish. All of us can have input in the job description, the goals. The goals are all of us. I mean, we're all working on those. That's why it might take a bit of time. And then if we get back to her in 2 more meetings from now with a good product, she can decide at that point if it's a job she wants to take over and move forward with as our board resets the direction collectively.
So
That's my
that is your motion. Are you clear on the motion, Elizabeth?
Nope.
Okay.
I am not. That was a
Motion-
long one,
Yep,
Greg,
yep,
sorry.
yep. Motion is that the board collectively works on a job description and revising the board's goals with your input, because you are the executive and you know the stuff. And then we will present our request, our offer back to you, so to speak, on what we want you to do.
All right, I'll rewatch the meeting at that timestamp, so, okay.
We have a motion by Tar. Do I have a second? Come on, guys. All right. Motion fails.
I'll make a motion, if I may, before I do.
Okay, this is about me. I have to take the minutes for all of this stuff in
Yep.
addition to all of this,
Tell
so
me
you
when you're
gotta
ready.
give me a second to even I'm running out of paper here, so.
Yes, ma'am.
While she's working, typically, when you are looking to do a job description or update the goals, it is done by typically, when you are doing a revision in the job description or updating goals, it is done in a close work session with the entire board present and the employee present.
That was the motion that I wanted to make, but I was waiting for Elizabeth to finish her notes.
Well, that's very good.
And I said multiple times, why can't we not do it as a board?
You need to do
Haven't,
it
didn't I?
as an entire board in a workshop, in a closed session with the employee present, and come up with an agreeable job description updated as well as goals for her. And she needs to be part of the process. The big thing that I see here now, and I'm not pointing fingers or blaming anyone, but there's clearly no trust at all. There is no trust. It's like he said, she said, I didn't do that. Oh, yes, you did. So I'm also going to suggest that when you have that session, and you all really need to be in attendance, it's really important that you come up develop an updated job description and goals, that Elizabeth be allowed to bring one person with her to this. Because otherwise, it's like lamb going to slaughter. That's, I think, how she's feeling, and I think, John, you tried to touch upon that. So I can't make a motion. Marty, if that was going to be your motion, that would be good.
Well, I think John and I both were talking about that.
Okay.
Is that what you were talking about?
I was going to be.
To get together as a board?
I'm waiting for Elizabeth still.
I'm good.
You ready?
Yeah.
I first, and again, because this is still hanging out there, and I apologize with the time, I would like to ask Elizabeth whether it be right now in front of the open session that you've allowed, or maybe we can set up a time. You tell me when, and we'll meet about this. You mentioned specifically my letter and facts that were not true, and I'd like to know what they are. And so I guess my question is, do you want to discuss that right now?
No, I don't.
Okay, so I would like.
Because it's
I would like-
10:30 at night, and we haven't even,
I
no.
would like to make sure that you understand. I would like a meeting. There'll be at least 3 of us in attendance, and I'd like to hear what facts.
3 of who?
You and I will talk about who a third person may be and what facts are not correct in my letter. On that, I'd like to make a motion to, what she said.
Would you like me to state it again?
I would ask that we don't do it that way. I think you need to form your motion, John.
I'd like to make a motion for this board, including Elizabeth, schedule a time when we can all sit together to hash out an agreed-upon job description, which everybody in this room can live with moving forward.
And goals.
Thank you. Job description with goals.
And you need to ask this lady to be a volunteer on that committee.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, we got closed caption on those meetings, so you can.
Oh, thank God. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
I second the motion that we all work together to create a job descriptive for you.
I have a motion by Rose, second by Hutnick. I'll just ask you to do a roll, Elizabeth.
Okay. Brandt?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Poznanski?
Yes.
Char?
Yes.
McLeod?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Hutnick?
Yes.
St. Laurent?
No.
All right, motion carries.
May I ask as a follow-up to that, what is the time frame in this?
We just,
I guess what I mean is like, because there's been a strong sense of urgency from, March 6th to now April 3rd, and my to-do list is an absolute mile long. It's an exaggeration, obviously, but I'm concerned that there's so much that's, I'm probably feeling what you all felt when I was down the freeway and you guys were like, wait, we just hired you. So I'm just concerned if this is gonna try to hurry up and be done before the next board meeting.
well, we've got our budget workshop coming up in May.
Next Thursday.
It's next Thursday.
My concern,
Yeah. So
Elizabeth.
I just wanna go on
is-
record
I'm
too,
sorry.
Zach.
My concern, Elizabeth, is your to-do list. And I think the sooner, not to punish you, but to help you, the sooner we can do this, the sooner we can help with that to-do list. The whole problem is your to-do list is just too cumbersome. Nobody can operate efficiently, correctly, and communicate
Because
properly.
I've been dealing with the barrage of everything.
And that's why I think that's the urgency in
The
doing
sooner the better.
this. That's the urgency. Now,
May I-
As soon as reasonable.
as soon as reasonable. If we can have a meeting so that we can then, at our next board meeting, made some ground, maybe we have to table it for another month, but at least we've met and we've made some sort of forward progress, I think that's the urgency, I would say.
So this is a
within the
committee
next-
of the whole, actually, correct?
Yeah, I would say
That's what-
within the
okay,
next
so I'm used to
20 days.
working in that language. I mean, honestly, all of your separate subcommittees, I
No.
mean, we've dealt with this
No,
at the library.
the motion
When you
was-
move to a committee of the whole for everything, it just clears things
The
up.
motion
but
was
it-
for all of us.
Okay,
Meaning
I'm just
everybody on this
clarifying.
board, and
All right, thank
May I,
we already
Zach?
voted, but I would say in the
Andrea,
next 20 days.
you have the floor.
Okay, so I just want to go on record that my vote for no is because you had assured me that we would not proceed without legal counsel due to the threats received. So
Okay.
that is the reason for my no vote. Without
That's fair.
any legal protection for the board, I won't participate.
Okay.
Can I ask one question? Were you aware of Saturday's meeting was to make her feel more comfortable? Did you know why it was being, as the chair? Did you know
No,
why it was being called Saturday?
I did not know, nor is it required for me to, it's,
Who posted it?
why, guys, that's not what we're talking about right
No,
now.
I know, that's the one who was like.
Okay.
Want to put a time frame on whatever?
Within 30 days.
What's that?
Elizabeth's asking for a
Yeah, do we
time
need to make a
frame.
motion? Can we do it like within 30 days?
We're gonna have to get everybody's schedules. Can we do it at the same time as the budget workshop? It's next
No,
Thursday.
I don't see how we could possibly do that at the same time as a budget
Well, let's
workshop.
Well, we're gonna
Within
have,
30
we're,
days.
Instead of,
in the next 30 days.
what about instead of?
It's 10:30. What difference does it make now? Go ahead.
get more batteries, so. For the cameras. I think what Andrea just spoke to, and obviously I don't know whatever the thread is, but there was a viable recommendation relative to a cap of $2,000 for legal assistance. Is it possible to have a motion that would cover that specific issue? So that you can meet in a closed session and at the same time have the legal.
As the chair, I'm going to reach out to our attorney. We don't need board approval for the chair to do that, so I will make sure I do that before this takes place, because there is an attorney that works at the firm that we work with that specializes in HR.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mhm.
Elizabeth, what about instead of budget workshop? We've already all agreed we were going to be at the budget workshop.
You need your budget.
You have to have the budget workshop. You can't do it in place of it.
Okay, so I'm making a motion to come together as a board to put together Elizabeth's, her job description within the next 30 days.
Well, wait, we just,
Can we not?
You just did that.
we already made a motion and.
Within the
passed.
next 30 days.
So we're gonna undo the vote that just
Oh, I
took
see.
place.
Okay, no, I
So the
see.
next meeting is May
We-
1st. It's less than 30 days away. It's less than 30 days away.
Again, you've got the project, you've got the.
We're all gonna just have to come together on it and figure out a date. I don't think any one of us at this juncture can give a timeline for when we can all get 9 or 10 people in a room. We can barely get 4 people on a subcommittee together. We're gonna have to figure it out, but it's gonna take some coordination of schedules. I would just ask that this board do their best to find a time where we can all be there. Is that something we can try to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. We will,
How about I throw some dates out by Thursday for possibly the week of the 17th?
Thank you.
sounds great.
Okay?
Okay, so next up,
Was that A and B? What?
well, I was gonna say, A and B was covered,
Okay.
yes. So we will be moving on to A, people-driven credit union presentation, and, sir, you have, what's
Steve.
Steve, you have the floor. You're up. Thank you for being so patient. All right, then you better get up there.
I would like to come back at a future board meeting.
Yay.
And then I'll just come back next month or whenever you guys invite me back, and then we'll talk.
I second that motion.
Thank you so much. So I'm gonna, at the request of Steve, hold on, Ruth. At At the request of Steve, I'm going to ask that we table the people-driven credit union presentation for a future date.
So you can
Right.
just table it, you don't have to call a
don't have to make
vote
one.
on that. No, you can
Oh,
just
okay.
table it.
All right, we'll table that.
Can't hear. In open comment, but there was no time. But there seems to be needing some education as to where the park is, because it's mixed in with all of your subjects. The park, the foundation goes in this week, and the pavilion will be up, hopefully, if we be able to work through Easter by the end of January, or end of April.
Okay,
So just
thanks.
for your information.
Thanks, Ruth.
Or just call me, I live across the street.
All right, next up, we have DDA organizational structure, history, roles, and responsibilities, and conflicts of interest. Is this something that can be tabled and discussed during job description? Elizabeth, can we table the director continued education opportunities and talk about it during the job description?
Sure, why not?
All right, we're going to table line item C, DDA subcommittee and volunteer communication. Andrea, Danielle, is that?
I
no,
didn't ask for it.
Okay, so we will table that.
I'm sorry, that's being tabled?
That is being tabled. And I think we covered that in the committee
we?
report,
Okay.
yeah. E, annual sponsorships.
Table.
You can table that.
We're going to table line item E, meeting minute requirements. We will table line item F.
So for reference, there's a very good document in the board packet from the Michigan Municipal League regarding how to have successful meetings. Just quickly, just because so please review that. I can put it in next month's board packet. I'm not sure how you always want to handle that, but.
A good thing for next meeting, workshop.
Okay, so moving on. Board member comments. Andrea?
None.
Megan?
I hope this starts us off on that foot of trust that you were talking about. I literally, in having a conversation with Zach this afternoon, said it just comes down to trust. And to have the instant that this was talked about, that we were going to let Elizabeth go, we see the value in what she does. But we also see that not only has she asked us, but we see the craziness of there is nothing there to direct. So I do hope this brings us to that first little tiptoe of trust between us and our director. Thank everybody for being here, sitting through that. That wasn't easy for us. It's not easy for you guys. Thank you for being here, spending your evening here.
Thank you, Megan. Danielle?
I don't have anything.
Carl?
All right, this is a hard decision I had to make, and I don't want anyone to think it's because of what's happened today, but I wrote a little note, but I'm never gonna be able to read it. So I joined the DDA 6 years ago. I was a little apprehensive when I joined. I wasn't sure what I got into, but I actually found that I really did enjoy it. We did a lot of projects I saw start and complete. The town clock for one, the mural for one, the sidewalk crossings, a lot of good things, but life changes as we move along, and I've had some just life changes in 6 years, and I just don't feel I have the time that's needed to dedicate to the DDA, so I hope the board accepts my resignation tonight. And please ask me to volunteer and sponsor as needed.
Thank you, Carl.
That's nice, thanks.
Sad to see you go.
Thank you.
John?
Are you going to still help with the Christmas lights?
John?
We'll see.
Okay.
Elizabeth, you had something in this board packet you said we could use next month. Save yourself time and paper. Can you be specific so we can all pull them out right now and make sure it's up
Yep,
to
it's
us?
it's towards the back Well, actually, it's anything from 11C on.
11C on.
11C on, which is my action item.
If we can all just simply make note to.
Or if you want to just hand it to me, I'll put them back in your
Are
packet.
we all putting these back in our
Yep,
envelopes?
hopefully.
If everyone can put 11C
Yeah.
on back in your same envelope, back to Elizabeth, will that help, Elizabeth?
Save the last two, yes, save the last 2 pages, that is, actually. Yep, you can do that, sure. And remember, you have your electronic copies, they're also on the village website as well, so.
Oh, that's true.
Other than that, I guess I would just say the board denies Carl's request to resign.
I second that.
Carl, thank you very much for everything you've done. And lastly, everybody on the board, as well as Elizabeth, please, let's go from here forward. So let's get our meeting that we've all agreed to do and be serious when we arrive and be productive and constructive. Thank you.
Deborah?
I agree. I just hope that there's a path forward. And many times I've said there's no more energy in the world than what she has. I would just like to harness it with what are our goals.
And I agree. We've all talked multiple times, Elizabeth, about your energy, and we would love to have that. But we have to find a way to move forward, and I think the only way we're going to be able to do that is more communication. Don't shut us down anymore. I've tried to talk to you multiple times, and I've been shut down regarding communication. We need that communication. It's very hurtful when you do shut us down. And another thing is,
Are we still, I'm sorry,
No,
are we
no,
still
no.
in the employment? I know, I'm just wondering if we're still
board
doing
comment.
the employee.
No, I just have some things I
Okay.
need to say,
All right.
okay? And I'm asking you respectfully to please don't go out and talk about businesses to other businesses and so forth. I don't gossip bad about you, and it really upsets me that I hear it all the time, things that are said and things that are done, and it's very hurtful. I am trying so hard to communicate, but it's got to be both ways. And the last thing I have to say, and then I'm done, is twice you asked me to step down. Once because you thought I was too busy, and when I declined that, you asked me again. I would like for you to would you please step down so we can get Kelly Stevens back on the board? Did you not say that? And that was.
Are these comments or questions?
They're
No,
comments.
I don't have
They're
the
board
time.
member- there's board member
well,
comments.
I know, and that's what I'm saying, and this is what I'm struggling with. And that's that trust issue that I can't get back because of the hurtful things that you have done to some of us. And that's it.
Greg?
Thank you all for taking your time tonight, and I'm committed to work harder the next bit of my term to try to bring this forward and get this into the end zone. And again, thank you all.
I guess that leaves me.
You're not resigning.
I'm pretty embarrassed, just the way this meeting went today. And as the chair, it's not a position I want to be in. I've been on this board for 8 years. And this is the first time I feel defeated in my position, not because of any board members or staff members, just the point to where it's gotten. I will see this director job description through that we discussed about. I feel like I owe that to this board, but I will not be continuing in my position here. It's gotten to a point where I just no longer feel I can be productive, and yeah, I mean that's where we're at now. I will get us through this tough line or this tough point, but I don't think I can be here forever. And yeah, it's become pretty apparent tonight. So with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion? Motion by Brandt. Do I have a second?
Second it.
Second by Hutnick. All in favor? Aye. Meeting's adjourned.